Eve Samantha Wilkins opened her eyes. For exactly 3 seconds she believed she was still there, still in the wasteland, still watching the last human settlement burn, while Viltrumite warships carved geometric patterns across a blood-red sky. Her hands moved first, reached for the weapon she'd kept beside her bed for the last 2 centuries, the one she'd built from salvaged Viltrumite tech and her own dying cellular matter, the one that had failed when conquest finally found her. Her fingers found cotton sheets instead. The scent hit her next. Clean, fresh, floral laundry detergent her mother bought from the grocery store. Not the acrid smoke of burning bodies, not the metallic tang of atomized cities, not the sulfur stench of a dying world. Eve sat up. Her bedroom materialized around her in the pre-dawn darkness. Posters on the walls, desk covered in homework she'd never actually completed, window overlooking the suburban street where she'd grown up. Everything exactly as it had been. Before, her breath came faster, hands trembling. She looked down at them, 17-year-old hands, soft and unmarred. No scars from the Battle of New York. No radiation burns from the Australian detonation. No calluses from 500 years of fighting and dying and resurrecting and fighting again. Young hands, impossible hands. The memories hit like a collapsing star. She remembered the last moment, the final death, Conquest's fist through her chest. The familiar sensation of her resurrection power activating, the pink energy flooding her cells, rebuilding, restoring, de-aging her body to its prime. But something had been different. The power had gone deeper, reached further, not just healing her body, but tearing through time itself, through causality, through the linear prison of chronology, and deposited her here, now, before. Eve's chest heaved, her vision blurred. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to stop the flood, but the memories kept coming, relentless, merciless. Mark dying in her arms. The first time, Beijing, 2087. His skull crushed by Thrag's bare hands while she watched, powerless, her mental blocks still intact, unable to alter living tissue, unable to save him. Mark dying the second time. London, 2143. Conquest's spine rip, the sound it made, the way Mark's eyes had stayed open, still looking at her even after the light went out. The third time, the 7th, the 12th, 17 times she'd watched him die, 17 times she'd failed to protect him. And between those deaths, the others, Rex, vaporized in the Sydney offensive, Robot executed by Viltrumite tribunal, Cecil, heart attack at 73, brought on by decades of impossible decisions, the Guardians, picked off one by one across a century of guerrilla warfare. Her parents, old age, she'd been 347 when they died, had attended their funeral wearing a face that looked 25, had stood at their graves and felt nothing because the part of her that could feel that kind of loss had burned away 200 years earlier. Eve stood, her legs worked, young muscles strong and healthy, no arthritis, no old wounds that ached when the weather changed. Just a 17-year-old body that had never been broken, yet. She walked to her mirror, looked at the stranger wearing her face. Pink hair still bright, brown eyes still clear, skin smooth and perfect, the face of a girl who'd never watched the world end, who'd never held her dying friends, who'd never spent 5 centuries learning that hope was a luxury you couldn't afford. But behind those eyes, ancient, terrible, wrong. Eve raised her hand, thought about the molecular structure of the mirror, silica, oxygen, trace minerals, simple matter waiting to be told what to be. The mental blocks that Dr. Brandyworth had installed in her brain, the ones that prevented her from manipulating living tissue, that had kept her powers safe, those blocks had shattered permanently around her 100th resurrection, burned away by the trauma of dying over and over, by the desperate need to save people her powers could reach but not touch. Now, those blocks were gone, had never existed in this timeline, or had been obliterated the moment 500 years of memories crashed into her teenage brain. The mirror's molecular structure shifted. Silicon became diamond. Diamond became gold. Gold became water. The water held its shape for exactly 3 seconds, surface tension manipulated at the atomic level, before Eve released it. The water became mirror again. She felt nothing, no satisfaction, no wonder at her own power, just cold acknowledgement of capability. The digital clock on her nightstand read 5:47 a.m. She looked at the date, today. the day the Guardians died. In the original timeline, the one she'd lived through, survived, endured, Omni-Man had slaughtered them tonight, had beaten the immortal until his skull cracked open, had torn Red Rush's arms from their sockets, had crushed War Woman's head against a console until it resembled pulped meat. Mark had found out weeks later. The investigation, the lies, the slow, horrible realization that his father was a monster. It had broken something in him, not immediately, not obviously. But Eve had watched it happen across years, decades. Had watched the idealistic boy become a traumatized man, become a bitter soldier, become a broken weapon. Not this time. Eve's hands clenched. Pink energy crackled around her fingers. Not the soft, controlled glow of Adam Eve, the teenage superhero. This was something else. Atomic fire. The visible manifestation of a consciousness that had learned to unmake reality. Her door opened. "Honey?" Her mother's voice. Concerned. Normal. Alive. "Are you okay? I heard..." She stopped, stared at Eve standing in the center of the room, surrounded by pink lightning, eyes glowing like miniature suns. Eve looked at her mother, at the woman who'd raised her, who'd died of old age 347 years from now, who had no idea her daughter had just lived through the apocalypse and come back to prevent it. The power faded. Eve's eyes dimmed. She manufactured a smile. The expression felt foreign on her face. "Bad dream," Eve said. Her voice was steady, controlled. "I'm fine, Mom." Her mother hesitated in the doorway. "You sure? You look..." "I'm fine," Eve repeated. The words came out harder than intended. She softened her tone. "Really, just need to get ready for school." Her mother nodded slowly, unconvinced but unwilling to push. "Okay, breakfast in 20 minutes? Sure." Eve stood in the silence of her childhood bedroom, looked at the posters on her walls, the homework on her desk, the normal, mundane trappings of a teenage life. She'd give anything to be that girl again, the one who worried about homework and boys and whether her costume looked cool, the one who thought being a superhero meant punching bad guys and saving the day. But that girl was dead, had died slowly across 5 centuries, had been burned away one trauma at a time, until all that remained was function, purpose. The cold, terrible clarity of someone who'd lost everything and learned exactly what it took to prevent that loss. Eve walked to her closet. Her costume hung there, bright pink and white, cheerful and optimistic, the uniform of Adam Eve, teenage superhero. She touched the fabric, thought about its molecular structure. The synthetic polymers shifted, darkened. The bright pink became deep magenta, almost crimson. The white became charcoal gray. The cheerful design became something severe, battle-worn, wrong. This wasn't the costume of a hero. This was the armor of something that had forgotten how to be human. Eve put it on. The material conformed to her body perfectly. She designed it that way, had spent decades perfecting the atomic structure to be exactly what she needed. She phased through her bedroom wall, didn't bother with the door. Doors were for people who obeyed physics. She was physics. Could rewrite the rules whenever she wanted. The morning air was cold against her skin. Dawn was breaking over the suburbs. The world looked peaceful, innocent, unaware that tonight one of Earth's greatest heroes would reveal himself as a monster. Unless she stopped him, Eve flew upward, not the clumsy, uncertain flight of a teenage hero still getting used to her powers. This was the flight of someone who'd spent 500 years in the air. Precise, efficient, effortless. She rose above the cloud layer, looked down at the world below, 8 billion people, mostly good, mostly trying, mostly doomed. Not this time. The teen base was her first stop. She had trashed to take out a lying, cheating boyfriend who'd wasted months of her previous timeline, who'd hurt her when she was still young enough to be hurt by that kind of betrayal. Rex Splode, in the original timeline, she'd found out about him and Kate at the Guardian's funeral, had confronted him, had cried, had felt the special kind of pain that came from trusting someone who saw you as disposable. She'd been 17, had thought that mattered, had believed in love and loyalty and all the other beautiful lies people told themselves. 500 years had taught her better. Eve descended toward the base. Dawnlight caught the pink energy trailing from her hands. From a distance, she probably looked beautiful, ethereal, like an angel. Up close, anyone looking at her eyes would see the truth. Angels didn't have eyes like hers. Empty, ancient, cold. She landed on the roof of the teen team headquarters, stood there for a moment, looking at the building, remembering the girl who'd worked here, Who'd thought this mattered? Who'd believed in the team, in friendship, in the bright future they'd build together? That girl was dead. Eve phased through the roof, descended through 3 floors of solid matter like it was air. Her molecular manipulation made everything permeable, everything changeable, every subject to her will. She materialized in the common room. Rex and Kate were on the couch, close, too close. Kate's duplicates scattered around the room, Rex's hand on her thigh. They saw Eve, froze. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Rex's mouth opened, that familiar, cocky grin starting to form. The one that used to make her smile, the one that now made her want to turn his bones to glass. Eve. Hey, I thought you were... Eve raised her hand. The air around Rex solidified, became crystal, transparent, unbreakable. His words cut off mid-sentence. His eyes went wide as he realized he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except watch. Kate's duplicates flickered, started to advance, defensive. Eve didn't look at them, didn't need to. The molecular structure of the air around each duplicate shifted, became dense, heavy. They collapsed under their own weight, gasping. Catherine Cha, Eve said. Her voice was flat, empty. Rex Splode told you I was dating Invincible. That was a lie. He's been cheating on me with you for 3 weeks. Kate's face went pale. Eve, I thought... I know you didn't know. Eve's gaze shifted to Rex, still frozen in his crystal prison. But he did. She walked toward him slowly, each step deliberate, measured. Rex's eyes tracked her movement. She could see the fear building in them. Good. You're an insecure child playing at being a hero, Eve said. You hurt people because you're too weak to face your own inadequacy. Looked at him the way an entomologist looks at a pinned insect. Clinical. Detached. In another timeline, finding out about this broke my heart. Made me cry, made me feel small and worthless and used. Rex's crystal prison muffled his sounds, but she could see him trying to speak, trying to apologize or lie or manipulate. It didn't matter. I'm not that girl anymore, Eve said. She snapped her fingers. Rex's costume began to change. The lightweight polymer shifted at the molecular level, became lead, dense, crushing lead, hundreds of pounds of it. The crystal prison dissolved. Rex collapsed under the sudden weight, hit the floor hard, gasped as the metal pressed down on him, trapped under his own uniform. Try making that explode, Eve said. She turned, walked toward the exit. Kate was still on the floor, her duplicates struggling under the heavy air. She looked up at Eve with fear and confusion. I quit, Eve said. Find someone else to play superhero with. Robot's voice crackled over the intercom. Adam, Eve, what's happening down there? The sensors are... Let him see what she'd become. Tell the others I'm done. I have more important things to do than babysit children. The wall in front of her didn't dissolve, didn't explode. The molecules simply parted. Like water. Like she'd told them to move and they obeyed, because matter had no choice when she spoke. She walked through. The wall reformed behind her. Seamless. Perfect. Behind her, in the teen team base, Rex was crying. Whether from pain or humiliation, Eve didn't know. She didn't care. The Guardians were scheduled to die in 12 hours. She had work to do. A father to stop. A timeline to rewrite. A world to save. And she would save it. All of it. Every person. Every life. Even if she had to become a monster to do it. Especially then, Eve rose into the morning sky. The sun was fully up now. Dawn over the city. A new day beginning. For everyone else, it was just another morning. For Eve, it was the first day of the timeline she would build with her own hands. The one where everyone she loved survived. Where Mark never learned his father was a monster. Where the Viltrumite Empire never conquered Earth. The one where she would burn away every threat before it could manifest. Where she would remake the world into something that couldn't be broken. No matter the cost. No matter what she had to become. Eve flew toward the Pentagon, toward Cecil Stedman and the GDA, toward the infrastructure she'd need to make Earth untouchable. Behind her, the sun rose over a world that had 12 hours left to live in its current form. After that, everything would change. Eve would make sure of it. The Pentagon materialized below Eve as she descended through cloud cover. She'd been here before. Many times in the original timeline, this building had become her second home across decades of coordinating Earth's defense. She'd stood in situation rooms watching cities fall, had argued with generals about acceptable losses, had watched Cecil Stedman age from a ruthless pragmatist into a broken old man who died still trying to save a world that was already gone. All of that was dust now, erased, replaced by this moment, the Pentagon as it existed before everything went wrong. Eve didn't land, she phased directly through the roof, through 12 floors of reinforced concrete and steel, through classified levels that didn't officially exist, through security systems that would have detected anyone else. Matter parted around her like water. She was rewriting the fundamental forces holding atoms together, telling them she had priority, making herself permeable to everything except air. She materialized in Cecil Stedman's office. He was at his desk, reviewing surveillance footage on multiple screens. His suit was crisp, his face unscarred. This was before the incident that would cost him his eye and half his face. Before the cybernetics, before the decades of impossible choices etched themselves into his features. He looked up, saw her. His hand didn't move toward the panic button, didn't reach for a weapon, just stayed flat on the desk. "Adam Eve," he said, voice calm, measured, breaking into the Pentagon. Bold move for a 17-year-old. "We need to talk, Director Stedman." Cecil studied her. She could see him processing, analyzing. His eyes tracked the modifications to her costume, the way she stood, the complete absence of teenage uncertainty. "You're different," he said. "Something's changed. Everything's changed." Eve walked to his desk, placed both hands on the surface. The molecular structure of the wood grain shifted beneath her palms. Patterns formed, maps, schematics, data she was pulling from her own memories and imprinting directly into the material. Cecil looked down, saw the images forming in the wood. His eyes widened fractionally. "This is Omni-Man," Eve said. "Real designation, Viltrumite Agent S-019. Sent to Earth 20 years ago. Mission parameters, infiltration, integration, subjugation. Tonight at 2100 hours, he's going to call the Guardians of the Globe to their headquarters. He's going to tell them there's an emergency. And then he's going to kill every single one of them." The wood showed it. Tactical schematics, Nolan's attack patterns, the massacre timeline, body positions, cause of death for each Guardian. Cecil's face remained neutral, but his fingers tightened on the desk edge. "That's quite an accusation. It's intelligence." Eve's hands moved. The wood shifted again, showed Viltramite Empire fleet movements, Conquest's approach trajectory, Thrag's throne ship. The Guardians' deaths are Phase 1. Omni-Man weakens Earth's defenses, makes us vulnerable. 6 months later, advanced scouts arrive. A year later, the Conquest fleet. 2 years later, Earth is a Viltramite colony, and humanity is either dead or enslaved. "And you know this how?" Eve met his gaze. Let him see her eyes. Let him see the ancient thing wearing a teenage face. "Because I lived through it, Cecil. I watched it happen. I spent 500 years fighting a war we'd already lost. I died, I resurrected, I died again. Over and over, until my power finally broke causality and sent me back here. To before. To when I could actually stop it." Cecil Stedman had built a career on evaluating threats, on reading people, on knowing when someone was lying. "You're telling the truth," he said quietly, "or you believe you are. Does the distinction matter? Not if you're right about tonight." Cecil stood, walked to his window, looked out at the city. If Omni-Man really is a sleeper agent, if he really plans to kill the Guardians, we don't have assets capable of stopping him. I can stop him. The window behind Cecil, bulletproof, blast-resistant glass 3 inches thick, transmuted, became diamond, became water, became gold, cycled through a dozen different states in 3 seconds before returning to glass. "Viltramite's strength comes from dense cellular structure," Eve said. "Enhanced molecular bonds. They're tough because their atoms resist change. But I don't fight atoms. I command them. Omni-Man's invulnerability means nothing when I can tell his cells to be something else." Jesus Christ. Cecil's voice was barely a whisper. "I need access to the Guardian's headquarters," Eve continued. "I need you to make sure I'm there when Omni-Man makes his move. I need authorization to act without GDA interference. You're asking for carte blanche to attack the most powerful being on Earth. I'm telling you I'm going to do it anyway. You can either facilitate or stay out of my way. Choose fast." Cecil walked back to his desk, sat down, pulled up a secure terminal. "If you're wrong, I'm not. If you're wrong," Cecil repeated, "you'll have assaulted a hero, started an incident that could destabilize global security. I'll have to arrest you. You can try. He becomes irrelevant, Eve said. I'm not going to kill him. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to make him powerless. Make him watch as I turn Earth into something the Viltrumite Empire can't touch. Make him spend the rest of his existence knowing he failed. That's not justice. We're at war, we just didn't know it yet. Cecil stared at her for a long moment. Then his fingers moved. Typed. Authorized. You'll have access, but Eve, he looked up. Whatever happened to you in this other timeline, whatever you became, don't lose sight of why we do this. We protect people. We don't become monsters to fight monsters. Eve's laugh was cold, bitter. You think I have a choice? You think I can save everyone I love and stay the bright, cheerful teenage hero? That's not how this works, Cecil. The universe doesn't allow that. So I'll be the monster. I'll be the one who makes the hard calls. I'll be the thing that stands between Earth and annihilation. And if that means I stop being human in the process, let him see the terrible certainty in her eyes. Then I stop being human. But everyone else gets to keep their humanity, gets to live normal lives, gets to be safe. That's the trade. Cecil was quiet. Then, Omni-Man's beacon shows him at home with his family. He'll move toward Guardian headquarters around 20-30 hours. Be ready. Started to phase through the wall. Eve. She stopped, looked back. What you're describing, Cecil said, this version of yourself that you're becoming, does it end well? Conquest's fist through her chest. The resurrection power activating one more time. The desperate, impossible reach backward through time. The willingness to sacrifice everything, including herself, to get one more chance. No, she said honestly. It ends with me alone, ancient, powerful, and completely empty. But everyone else survives. So yes, it ends exactly how it needs to. The Guardians of the Globe headquarters stood on the outskirts of the city, gleaming, modern, impressive. Eve had watched it burn in the original timeline, had stood in the ruins after Omni-Man's massacre and felt the deaths of 7 heroes, like physical blows, had known even then that this was the beginning of the end. Not this time. She materialized on the roof at 20:45 hours. The emergency beacon would go out in 15 minutes. The Guardians would arrive, confused, concerned, ready to face whatever threat required their full team. They had no idea the threat was already inside. Eve waited, patient, ancient, a predator who'd learned to be still. Below, she could sense the molecular signatures, the Immortal in the command center, Red Rush doing a perimeter check, War Woman reviewing mission logs, Aquarius in the aquatic wing, Martian Man in meditation, Green Ghost phasing through walls on patrol, Darkwing in the armory. 7 heroes, good people, flawed but trying. They'd die tonight if she didn't intervene. The beacon activated at 2100 hours exactly. Eve felt them converge, felt their confusion through the vibrations in the building's structure. They were gathering in the command center, waiting. Omni-Man arrived 3 minutes later. Eve descended through the roof, phased through 5 floors, materialized in the command center's observation deck, concealed, watching. Nolan Grayson stood among the Guardians, his expression confused. Sorry I'm late. What's the situation? The Immortal frowned. We don't know. The signal came from here, but had watched footage of this moment hundreds of times across the previous timeline. The precise instant when the mask dropped, when the loving father and dedicated hero disappeared, when the Viltramite warrior emerged. The situation, Nolan said, is that you're all going to die now. The Immortal's eyes widened. What? Pink energy flooded the command center like a detonation. Every atom in the room responded to her will simultaneously. The Guardians froze mid-motion, not paralyzed, but held in molecular stasis. The Immortal's fist stopped inches from Nolan's face. Red Rush's supersonic charge arrested. War Woman's mace locked in mid-swing. Omni-Man himself froze. His fist was already drawn back, aimed at the Immortal's skull, the killing blow that would start the massacre. But he couldn't move, couldn't even twitch. Every cell in his body was locked in place by a consciousness that had learned to command matter like a language. Eve stepped out of the observation deck, walked through the wall. The concrete and steel parted around her, reformed behind her. She descended to the command center floor. 7 Guardians and 1 Viltramite agent, all frozen in the moment before slaughter. Eve walked between them, studied each face. In the original timeline, she'd attended their funerals, had stood at their graves, had watched the world mourn them while knowing their deaths were just the first casualties in a war that would last centuries. She stopped in front of Omni-Man. "Hello, Nolan," she said. His eyes could move. Just his eyes. She'd allowed that much. Let him watch. Let him understand. She saw the recognition, the confusion, the calculation. This teenage girl who'd been to his house for dinner, who'd dated his son's friend, who'd seemed harmless, standing in front of him with godlike power radiating from every pore. "You're wondering how I know," Eve said. "How I could possibly know about tonight. About your mission. About what you are." She walked around him slowly, circled him like a predator examining prey. "I know because I lived through what comes next, Nolan. I watched you beat the immortal until his skull fractured. Watched you tear Red Rush's arms off. Watched you kill these people and then spend weeks pretending to investigate your own crime. I watched Mark find out. Watched it break him. Watched the slow destruction of everything good in him as he tried to reconcile the father he loved with the monster you actually are." Eve stopped in front of him again. "I spent 500 years watching the consequences of tonight. Watching Earth fall, watching everyone I loved die. And I'm not letting it happen again." She raised her hand. Nolan's right arm began to change. The Viltrumite cellular structure, dense, resilient, nearly indestructible, transmuted. Flesh became glass, transparent, crystalline, fragile. Nolan's eyes widened. He could feel it. The wrongness. His enhanced physiology meant nothing. His strength was useless. Eve was simply telling his atoms to be something else, and they obeyed. "Did you think your power mattered?" Eve asked, voice clinical. "Empty. Power is just molecular bonds, atomic structure, dense cellular matrices, and I can rewrite all of it." The glass spread. Up his shoulder, across his chest. Nolan tried to move, tried to activate his Viltrumite strength, but the molecular stasis held him perfectly still. "I could kill you right now," Eve said. "Turn your brain to sand. Make your heart explode. Transmute your blood to acid. But I'm not going to. Know why? Because Mark needs to know you're contained. Needs to see you powerless, needs to understand that you can never hurt anyone again. That's the only mercy you're getting from me, Nolan. Your son's peace of mind." Eve stepped back. The glass stopped spreading, covered half his body, a visible reminder of his helplessness. "Now," Eve said, "let me explain what's going to happen next." She gestured. The Guardians unfroze, stumbled, gasped, hands went to weapons, powers activated, combat stances engaged. The Immortal recovered first. His eyes took in the scene. Nolan half turned to glass. Eve standing calmly, the impossible pink energy still radiating from her. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. Eve turned to face them. 7 heroes. 7 good people who deserve the truth. "Omni-Man is a Viltramite sleeper agent," she said. "He was sent to Earth 20 years ago to prepare it for conquest. Tonight was Phase 1. He was going to kill all of you. Weaken Earth's defenses, make us vulnerable to invasion." War Woman's mace crackled with energy. "That's insane. Omni-Man is—" "A soldier following orders," Eve interrupted. "His real designation is Agent S-019. His mission parameters included infiltration, integration, and subjugation. He married a human woman to establish his cover. He had a son to create a hybrid soldier for the Viltramite Empire. Everything he's done for 20 years has been in service of eventual conquest." Red Rush moved, his super speed carrying him around the room, checking, analyzing. He stopped in front of Omni-Man, looked at the glass transformation, at the frozen warrior. "This is real," Red Rush said. "Look at his expression. He's not denying it." The Immortal walked forward, faced Nolan directly. "Is it true?" Eve released Nolan's throat. "Let him speak." "Yes," Nolan said, voice flat, emotionless. The Viltramite warrior without his mask. "Everything she said is true." The room went silent. "My name is Nolan Grayson. I am a Viltramite operative. I have been on Earth for 20 years preparing it for integration into the Empire. Tonight was the beginning of that process." Green Ghost materialized fully. "Then why tell us? Why not just lie? Whatever she is, whatever she's become, she's more powerful than anything the Empire has encountered. Lying would be pointless." "Smart man," Eve said. "Now, let's discuss Earth's defense." She turned to the Guardians. "Let them see her fully. Let them process what she'd become. The Viltrumite Empire has thousands of warriors. They've conquered hundreds of worlds. In 6 months, advanced scouts will arrive to check on Nolan's progress. In a year, the conquest fleet, Earth's current defensive capabilities are insufficient. The Immortal's jaw tightened. And you have a solution. I am the solution, Eve said. I can upgrade your equipment, reinforce your headquarters, give you weapons that can hurt Viltrumites. I can make Earth too costly for the Empire to conquer. Why? Warwoman asked. Why would you do this? Eve looked at each of them, 7 heroes who deserved honesty. Because I've already watched you die once. I'm not doing it again. She raised both hands. Pink energy flooded the room. The Guardians tensed, ready to fight. The headquarters began to transform. Walls reinforced themselves, became harder than diamond. Structural supports thickened, security systems upgraded in real time. New power systems materialized. Weapon systems that shouldn't be possible with current technology assembled themselves from raw matter. In 30 seconds, the headquarters went from modern to beyond cutting edge. A fortress that could withstand nuclear strikes, a command center worthy of defending a planet. The Guardians watched in stunned silence. This is what I can do, Eve said. For every base, every bunker, every stronghold, I can give Earth the defenses it needs. But I need something in return. The Immortal found his voice. What? Operational authority, Eve said. When it comes to extraterrestrial threats, cosmic entities, anything that could harm this planet, I make the calls. No committees, no oversight, no bureaucratic delays. You're asking for unilateral command, the Immortal said. I'm telling you I already have it, Eve corrected. I'm offering to work with you instead of around you. Your choice, partnership or irrelevance. The Guardians exchanged glances. Silent communication, years of working together. The Immortal turned back to Eve. On one condition, you answer one question honestly. Ask. The girl we knew, cheerful, optimistic, kind, where did she go? Eve was quiet for a moment. Then she died, slowly. Across 500 years of watching everyone she loved turn to ash, she's gone. What I am now is what's necessary to keep her from dying in this timeline, too. The Immortal held her gaze, saw the truth, saw the terrible price. All right, he said, partnership, but we maintain ethical oversight. You might be powerful enough to do anything, but that doesn't mean you should. As long as ethics don't slow me down when seconds matter. They shook hands. The Immortal's grip was strong. Eve's was stronger. Now, Eve said, releasing his hand, let's talk about securing Mark Grayson. The Immortal frowned. Invincible, whatever resources you need, whatever support, he doesn't find out about this until I'm ready to tell him. Understood? The Guardians looked at each other again, then nodded. Understood, the Immortal said. Eve turned to Nolan, still frozen, still half glass. You're going to a cell that doesn't exist in normal space. A pocket dimension where your strength means nothing. Where you can't hurt anyone. Where you'll spend the rest of your existence watching me turn Earth into something the Empire can't touch. Mark will hate you for this, Nolan said. When he finds out what you are. What you've become. Maybe, Eve said, but he'll be alive to hate me. That's all that matters. She gestured. Nolan disappeared, transmuted into the pocket dimension she'd created. Gone. The command center was silent except for the hum of newly upgraded systems. We have work to do, Eve said. The Empire is coming. And when they arrive, they're going to find Earth ready. Mark Grayson sat in third period history, trying to focus on Mr. Hiles droning about the Industrial Revolution. His phone buzzed, once, 3 times in rapid succession. He glanced down, text messages. From his dad. Can't make dinner tonight. Emergency at work. Don't wait up. Love you, son. Mark frowned. His dad had been weird lately, distracted, tense. Like something was bothering him, but he wouldn't talk about it. The intercom crackled. Mark Grayson to the principal's office, please. Whispers rippled through the classroom. Mark grabbed his bag, ignoring William's questioning look. The walk to the office felt longer than usual. His enhanced hearing picked up conversations from other classrooms. His still-developing powers made everything sharper, clearer, overwhelming. The principal's secretary gestured toward the office. Someone's waiting for you. Mark opened the door. Eve stood by the window. She turned when he entered. Something about her made him stop. She looked different, older, somehow, despite being the same age. Her eyes had a weight to them that hadn't been there before. Eve? Mark heard the mechanism engage even though neither of them had touched it. Mark, I need you to listen very carefully. Your father isn't who you think he is. Mark's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? His name is Nolan Grayson, but his real designation is Viltrumite Agent S-019. He was sent to Earth 20 years ago. His mission was to weaken our planet's defenses and prepare it for conquest by the Viltramite Empire. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense, Mark laughed. A short, uncomfortable sound. That's crazy. My dad is a hero. He saved thousands of... Tonight he was going to murder the Guardians of the Globe, Eve interrupted. All of them. He was going to call them to headquarters, tell them there was an emergency, and then kill them one by one. I stopped him. Mark's legs felt weak. He sat down hard in a chair. This isn't funny, Eve. If this is some kind of... I'm not joking. Eve's voice was flat, empty. Your father is currently contained in a pocket dimension I created. The Guardians are alive, and you need to understand what you are before the Empire comes looking for you. What I am? Mark's voice cracked. I'm just me. You're half Viltrumite, Eve said. Your father didn't marry your mother because he loved her. He married her because the Empire needed hybrid soldiers. You were always meant to be a weapon, Mark. A tool for conquest. The room spun. Mark's enhanced hearing picked up his own heartbeat. Too fast, too loud. Everything was too loud. I don't believe you, he whispered. My dad wouldn't. He's not. Eve crossed the distance between them, knelt in front of his chair, took his hands in hers. Her touch was warm, solid, real. I know this is devastating, she said quietly. I know it feels like your entire world is collapsing. But Mark, listen to me. You are not your father. You're not a weapon. You're not a tool. You're Mark Grayson, and you're the best person I've ever known. Tears burned Mark's eyes. How do you know all this? How could you possibly... Pulled him to his feet. Come with me. See for yourself. The GDA Black Site was 40 miles outside the city. Eve flew them there. Mark had been flying for weeks now. But Eve's flight was different. Effortless. Perfect. Like gravity was a suggestion she'd chosen to ignore. They landed on a facility that didn't appear on any map. Guards with weapons Mark didn't recognize watched them descend. Didn't raise those weapons. Just nodded at Eve like they'd been expecting her. Cecil Stedman met them at the entrance. His good eye studied Mark with something like sympathy. Mr. Grayson, Cecil said. I'm sorry you're learning about this the hard way. Is it true? Mark's voice was barely above a whisper. About my dad? Mark's knees buckled. Eve's hand on his arm was the only thing keeping him upright. I want to see him, Mark said. Cecil and Eve exchanged glances. That's not advisable, Cecil said. What Eve did to him, what was necessary to contain him, it's not something you should... I want to see him. Mark's voice was stronger now, harder, now, through corridors lined with technology that seemed decades ahead of anything Mark had seen. Past laboratories where scientists worked on projects he couldn't begin to understand. They stopped at a door that looked like solid steel but shimmered slightly, like heat distortion. This is a dimensional interface, Cecil said. The containment cell exists in a pocket reality. Time moves normally, but the physical laws are different. Your father's strength means nothing there. He pressed his palm to a scanner. The door dissolved. Beyond was a room, small, sterile, white walls that seemed to extend infinitely. And in the center, suspended in what looked like crystalline energy, half his body was glass, transparent, fragile. The other half was still flesh, but he wasn't moving, wasn't struggling, just floating there, eyes open, staring at nothing. Dad? Mark's voice broke. Nolan's eyes shifted, focused on Mark. For a moment, something human flickered in them. Regret, pain, love. Then it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. Mark, Nolan said. His voice came through speakers, filtered, distant. You shouldn't be here. What did you do? Mark stepped closer to the dimensional interface. Why would you? How could you? This planet was my assignment. You were part of that assignment. I'm your son. You're a hybrid, a genetic experiment. The Empire wanted to see if human DNA could strengthen the Viltrumite bloodline. You and others like you are part of a breeding program. Mark felt bile rise in his throat. I don't believe you. Believe what you want. It doesn't change the truth. Eve's hand found Mark's shoulder. That's enough. Mark, we should... Why? Mark asked his father. tears streaming down his face now. Why are you saying this? Why are you being so... I played a role, established a cover, prepared for conquest. That's all this was. Mark couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Everything he believed about his family, his life, his father, lies. Mark. Eve's voice cut through the spiral. He's lying. Look at his eyes. He's trying to make you hate him because he thinks it'll protect you. Because if you hate him, you won't try to save him, won't put yourself at risk. She turned to face the dimensional prison. Isn't that right, Nolan? You're pushing Mark away because you think it'll keep him safe from the Empire. Because you actually do care about him, even if it violates your mission parameters. Nolan's expression didn't change. But his silence was answer enough. I spent 500 years studying Viltrumite psychology, Eve continued. I know how your kind thinks, how you rationalize, how you protect the few things you allow yourselves to care about. You're not as emotionless as you pretend. She stepped closer to the interface. But here's what you need to understand. Mark is safe, not because of you, not because of the Empire, because of me. I will kill anything that threatens him, transmute it to dust before it can touch him. Your concern is obsolete, Nolan. I've got him now. Mark looked between them, his father, imprisoned and powerless, Eve, radiating terrible certainty. I don't understand any of this, Mark said. I don't understand what you are, Eve. What you've become, how you can do these things. I know, Eve said gently, and I'll explain everything when you're ready. But right now, we need to leave. You've seen enough. One more thing. Mark's voice was hollow. Dad, did you ever? Was any of it real? Any moment? Any memory? Nolan was quiet for a long time. Then, your first flight, when you finally figured out how to control it. The pride I felt, that was real. The fear when you got hurt fighting those cyborgs, that was real. The moment you were born and I held you. His voice cracked just slightly, but Mark heard it. That was real too. Eve followed, her hand never leaving his shoulder. Behind them, Nolan floated in his prison, half glass, half human, all alone. Mark didn't know where they were going until Eve landed on a rooftop. Downtown, the city spread below them. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that aliens existed, that empires wanted to conquer them, that everything was so much bigger and more terrifying than they knew. I can't go home, Mark said. Can't face my mom right now, can't pretend everything's normal. I know, Eve said. They sat on the edge of the roof, legs dangling over empty air. 70 stories of nothing between them and the street. How did you know? Mark asked finally. About my dad. About tonight. Eve was quiet for a moment. I told you I can't explain it yet. But Mark, I need you to trust me. About what's coming, about how dangerous this is. The Viltramite Empire. Yes, they're going to come looking when your father doesn't report in, and they're going to want you, a hybrid who's already developed powers. You're valuable to them, potentially very valuable. Mark's hands clenched. I won't help them. I won't. I know you won't, but they won't give you a choice. They'll try to break you, condition you, turn you into what they need you to be. That's why I need to train you, really train you. Not the basics your father was teaching you. She stood, offered him her hand. I can make you strong enough to fight them, Mark. Strong enough to protect yourself. Strong enough to survive in a universe that's much more dangerous than you realize. But it's going to be hard, painful. You're going to want to quit. Mark took her hand, let her pull him to his feet. Will you be there, he asked, during the training, or are you just going to hand me off to someone else? Eve's expression softened. Just slightly, the first crack in her cold facade since this morning. I'll be there, she said. Every session, every fight, every moment. I'm not leaving you alone in this, Mark. I promise. Why? Mark asked. Why do you care so much? We're friends, but this is more than that. The way you look at me, the way you talk about protecting me. It's like you're the only thing in the world that matters to me, Eve finished, because you are. Mark blinked. I don't understand. You will. Eventually, but right now I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Really looked at the ancient eyes in a teenage face, at the terrible power radiating from her, at the fierce, protective certainty that bordered on obsession. Yeah, he said, I can trust you. Good. Eve's hands glowed pink. Then let's start your training, right now. First lesson, controlled flight at altitude. Second lesson. Wait, right now? Mark asked. I thought we'd ease into Eve's smile was sharp. The Empire doesn't ease into conquest, Mark, neither do we. Fly. She launched herself into the air. Mark followed, his flight still awkward, still uncertain. Eve circled back, corrected his posture with a touch. Straighter. You're fighting gravity instead of redirecting it. Viltrumite flight isn't about force. It's about convincing the universe you're going a different direction. Stop pushing, start being. Eve caught him, steadied him. Her touch was gentle despite her power. Again, she said. They spent 3 hours drilling. Flight patterns, speed bursts, direction changes. Mark crashed twice. Eve caught him both times. By midnight, Mark could fly in a straight line without thinking about it, could change direction mid-flight, could even manage a crude hover. They landed on another rooftop. Mark was exhausted, sweating. His new powers had drained him completely. Good start, Eve said. Tomorrow we work on strength training. Day after, durability conditioning. Day after that, combat basics. Can't we take a day off? Mark gasped. No. Eve's voice was firm. Every day you're not training is a day you're vulnerable. A day someone could hurt you. I won't allow that. About me being the only thing that matters to you. Yes, that's kind of terrifying. I know. Eve's expression was unreadable. But it's also the only reason Earth survives, because I care about you enough to burn the universe to keep you safe. Everything else, the Guardians, Cecil, humanity, they're secondary. You're the priority. That's not healthy, Eve. Probably not, she agreed. But it's what I am now, what I had to become, and it's what will keep you alive when the Empire comes. To tell her this wasn't right. That this obsessive protection wasn't what he needed, but he was too tired, too overwhelmed, too broken by the revelation about his father. Take me home, he said quietly. Please, I need to sleep. Eve nodded, took his hand. They flew together toward his house. She left him at his window, watched him climb inside, watched him collapse on his bed, still in his clothes. Then she rose into the night sky, alone, always alone. But Mark was safe. That was all that mattered. Eve flew to the orbital platform she'd constructed, the one that didn't exist on any radar, the one that monitored every approach to Earth's atmosphere. She sat in the command chair, pulled up sensor displays, watched for threats. Somewhere in space, the Viltramite Empire was waiting, wondering why Nolan hadn't reported in, planning their response. Let them plan, let them come. Eve had lived through their conquest once, had spent 500 years fighting a war she couldn't win. This time was different. This time she had power, had knowledge, had the absolute certainty that came from experiencing the worst possible outcome. The Empire would come, and Eve would show them what happened when you threatened her world. When you threatened Mark, she'd show them the thing she'd become, and they would learn to fear it. The pocket dimension existed outside normal space-time. Eve had built it using principles that shouldn't be possible, folding reality into itself, creating a prison where physical laws bent to her will. Time moved normally inside, but everything else was wrong. Gravity pulled from 6 different directions. The walls extended infinitely while the room stayed 12 feet across. Temperature fluctuated between extremes without pattern. Most importantly, Viltramite strength meant nothing here. Nolan Grayson floated in the center of this impossibility, still half transmuted to glass. He'd stopped struggling after the first day, stopped testing the boundaries after the second. By the third day, he'd accepted the truth. He was completely helpless. The dimensional interface shimmered. Eve materialized inside the prison. She'd done this every day since his capture. Came to watch him, study him, make sure he understood his new reality. You look tired, Nolan, Eve said. It was true. Dark circles under his eyes. Posture slumped. The proud Viltramite warrior reduced to this, suspended in crystalline energy, unable to move, unable to escape. What do you want? Nolan's voice was hoarse. He'd been screaming for the first few days, testing whether anyone could hear him, whether anyone would come. No one had. To talk, Eve said. She walked around him slowly. The dimensional geometry allowed her to cross impossible distances in single steps. About your mission, about what you thought would happen. I failed. The mission is compromised. The Empire will send replacements. Yes, Eve agreed. They will. Conquest and Anissa are already en route, should arrive in approximately 6 weeks. They're coming to check on you, to determine what went wrong. Nolan's eyes widened fractionally. How do you... I know Conquest is second only to Thrag in combat capability. I know Anissa specializes in infiltration and genetic procurement. I know exactly what they're going to do when they arrive. She stopped in front of him, met his gaze. I know because I killed them both in my original timeline. It took me 3 tries to figure out how to stop Conquest. 2 tries for Anissa. Eventually I learned their patterns, their vulnerabilities, how to transmute their cells faster than they could regenerate. You're insane, Nolan said quietly. No, I'm experienced. There's a difference. Eve raised her hand. The glass covering Nolan's body shifted, crawled up his neck, stopped just below his jaw. Let me show you something. The dimensional walls changed, became screens, showed images pulled directly from Eve's memories. Earth burning, cities reduced to ash, the Viltrumite conquest fleet in orbit, Mark's body broken and bleeding, surrounded by enemy warriors, the final human stronghold falling. 500 years of war compressed into minutes of footage. This is what happens if I fail, Eve said. This is the future I lived through. Everyone dead. Everything gone. Mark died 17 times across that timeline, Nolan. 17 times I watched him bleed out in my arms. 17 times I failed to protect him. The images shifted, showed Mark as a child, training with Nolan, learning to fly, smiling, happy, innocent. You raised a good man, Eve continued. Despite your mission, despite your programming, you raised someone kind, brave, compassionate, someone who wanted to help people. And then your empire tried to turn him into a weapon, tried to break him, condition him, make him something he wasn't. The glass on Nolan's face spread, covered his mouth, his nose, sealed his airways. Nolan's eyes went wide. He tried to breathe, couldn't. His Viltrumite physiology meant he could survive without oxygen for weeks, but the body still panicked, still triggered every survival instinct. Eve watched him suffocate for 30 seconds, then reversed the transmutation, let him gasp, choke. Remember what helplessness felt like? You wanted to know what I want? Eve asked. I want you to understand what you cost me, what your mission cost, what the Empire costs. She moved closer, until she was inches from his face. I want you to know that every decision you made, marrying Debbie, having Mark, establishing your cover, all of it backfired, because you created the one thing I care about protecting. You gave me a reason to become this, to sacrifice my humanity, to turn myself into something that can fight the Empire and win. Mark will hate you for this, Nolan said, voice ragged. When he sees what you've become, what you're willing to do, he'll be alive to hate me, Eve interrupted. That's all that matters. I don't need his love, Nolan. I don't need his approval. I just need him breathing. Everything else is negotiable. She stepped back, the dimensional walls shifted again, this time showing live feeds. Mark, training on a rooftop, flying patterns Eve had taught him. His form was improving, getting stronger, more confident. Look at him, Eve said. Really look, he's everything you pretended to be. Actually heroic, actually good, and the Empire wants to corrupt that. Break him, turn him into another soldier. Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, regret, love, the emotions he'd been trained to suppress but couldn't fully eliminate. I won't let that happen, Eve continued. I will burn the Viltrumite Empire to cosmic dust before I let them touch him. I will kill Conquest when he arrives. I will kill Anissa. I will kill Thrag if he comes personally. I will kill every single warrior the Empire sends until they learn that Earth is mine, that Mark is mine, that this planet is off limits. She transmuted the glass on Nolan's body, made it spread further, cover more of his torso, creep down his legs. And you're going to watch, Eve said. You're going to spend every day in this prison watching me protect your son, watching me do the job you were never going to do, watching me be the guardian Earth actually needs. He's my son, Nolan said, desperation creeping into his voice. I have a right to. You have no rights. Eve's voice was cold, final. You gave those up when you planned to murder the Guardians, when you prepared Earth for conquest, when you decided Mark was just a genetic experiment instead of your child. She gestured. The dimensional prison contracted. The infinite white walls closed in. The space became smaller, tighter, claustrophobic. Nolan's breathing quickened. What are you doing? That I control every aspect of it. That I can make it comfortable or unbearable depending on my mood. The walls kept contracting until the space was barely larger than Nolan's body, until he couldn't move without touching the walls, until the glass covering his body pressed against the dimensional boundaries. "Stop," Nolan said. "Please." Eve tilted her head. "Please, the great Viltrumite warrior is begging. You're torturing me." "No, I'm demonstrating power dynamics. Torture would be if I was enjoying this. I'm not. I feel nothing when I look at you, Nolan. You're just an obstacle I've neutralized, a potential threat I've contained." Let Nolan breathe again. "But I can make it worse," Eve said. "So much worse. I can make the glass spread until you're completely crystalline, make you fragile enough that a strong thought could shatter you. I can alter the time dilation, make days feel like years, make you experience decades of isolation while minutes pass outside." She walked around him again. "Or I can make this comfortable, give you books, entertainment, human interaction, let you watch Mark grow up, see him become the hero he's meant to be. The choice is yours, Nolan. Cooperation or suffering? Which do you prefer? Thrag's capabilities, Viltrumite weaknesses, cultural protocols. I want a complete intelligence dump. And if I refuse?" Eve's smile was cold. "Then I start experimenting. See how far I can transmute you before your Viltrumite physiology breaks. See if I can turn you into something that's still technically alive but completely non-functional. See how much of you I can remove before you stop being Nolan Grayson and become something else entirely." She leaned close. "I have 500 years of experience with Viltrumite anatomy, Nolan. I know exactly how your species works, how you heal, how you think, how you break. Don't test me." Nolan stared at her, at the ancient thing wearing a teenage face, at the absolute certainty in her eyes. "You really would do it," he said quietly. "Yes, you've become a monster." "Yes," Eve agreed. "But I'm Earth's monster. That's the difference." She gestured. A interface materialized in the air. Holographic display, recording equipment. "Start talking," Eve said. "Tell me everything, fleet positions, warrior capabilities, Thrag's command style, communication protocols, everything." Nolan looked at the interface, at Eve, at the live feed of Mark still training in the background. "If I do this," Nolan said slowly, "if I betray the Empire, they'll know when conquest arrives, when he scans me, he'll know I've compromised operational security. They'll consider me a traitor." "You are a traitor," Eve said. "The question is whether you're a traitor to the Empire or to your son. Choose." "The Empire has protocols for traitors, methods of—" "I understand perfectly," Eve interrupted. "The Empire will torture you if they capture you. We'll make an example of you. We'll ensure every Viltrumite knows the price of betrayal. But Nolan," she gestured at the prison around them, "they're never going to capture you. You're never leaving this dimension. You're going to spend the rest of your existence here, watching me protect Earth, watching me raise your son to be the hero you could never be. The Empire's opinions are irrelevant." Nolan closed his eyes. "He'll never forgive me, Mark. When he learns I gave you this information, betrayed my people." "Maybe not," Eve said, "but he'll be alive to make that choice. That's more than the Empire would have given him." Silence filled the dimensional prison. Nolan floated in his crystalline cage. Eve waited, patient, inevitable. Finally, Nolan spoke. "Thrag's command ship is designated Warworld Alpha. Current position, Sector 771, approximately 6 light-years from Earth. Fleet composition, 47 heavy cruisers, 322 support vessels, and 2,300 combat-ready warriors." Eve's eyes glowed pink. The interface began recording. "Continue," she said. Nolan talked for 3 hours, spilled every secret, every tactical advantage, every piece of intelligence the Empire had spent centuries protecting. He told Eve about Viltrumite breeding programs, about the scourge virus that nearly destroyed their species, about Thrag's rise to power, about the civil war that reduced their numbers from thousands to hundreds. He told her about weaknesses, about the inner ear vulnerability to specific sonic frequencies, about the genetic degradation that made every new generation slightly weaker, about the political factions within the Empire that secretly opposed Thrag's expansionist policies. He told her everything. And Eve recorded it all, processed it, filed it away in her ancient memory, added it to 500 years of first-hand combat experience. When Nolan finally finished, he looked exhausted, defeated, broken. "There," he said. "You have what you wanted. Everything I know, everything I am, it's all yours." Eve studied the data, cross-referenced it against her memories, found inconsistencies, asked follow-up questions, drilled deeper. By the time she was satisfied, 6 hours had passed. Good, Eve said. She deactivated the recording interface. This gives us a significant tactical advantage. Conquest won't expect Earth to have this level of intelligence, won't anticipate our countermeasures. He'll kill you, Nolan said quietly. Conquest is the second strongest warrior in the Empire. He's survived battles that killed dozens of other Viltrumites. Your powers won't stronger, but I learned, adapted. The second time I lasted longer. The third time I won. She walked toward the dimensional exit. This time I won't need 3 tries. This time I have advanced knowledge, preparation, and 500 years of combat experience compressed into a teenage body. Conquest is strong, but I'm inevitable. She paused at the exit, looked back at Nolan. You did the right thing, she said, giving me this information, betraying your empire. Mark will never know, but you protected him today. That matters, does it? Nolan asked bitterly. Does anything I do matter when I'm trapped here? When I can't fight, can't help, can't? You can watch, Eve said. You can see him grow up. See him become the man you raised him to be. That's more than most traders get. The dimensional interface opened. Eve stepped through. I'll be back tomorrow, she said. We'll review Conquest's combat patterns, go over counter tactics, prepare for his arrival. The interface closed. Nolan was alone again. In his prison, in his shame, in his failure. He looked at the walls, at the infinite white space, at the glass covering half his body. Then he looked at the small viewing window Eve had left active, the one showing Mark. His son was still training, still improving, still alive and whole and safe. Nolan watched him fly, watched him execute the patterns Eve had taught him, watched him become stronger. And despite everything, despite his imprisonment, his betrayal, his shame, Nolan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Relief. Because Mark was safe, protected, guarded by something far more dangerous than any Viltrumite warrior. Protected by a god who loved him enough to burn the universe. Nolan floated in his prison and watched his son train. And for the first time since his capture, he smiled. The GDA command center buzzed with controlled chaos. 47 screens displayed global threat assessments. Satellite feeds tracked superhuman activity across 6 continents. Analysts reviewed incident reports from the past 24 hours. Everything was normal, routine. The organized machinery of planetary defense functioning exactly as designed. Then every screen went pink. The analysts froze, looked at each other, checked their systems. Nothing was wrong with the equipment. The displays were simply showing solid pink across every monitor simultaneously. Cecil Stedman was in his office when the alerts started screaming. He grabbed his jacket and moved toward the command center, his hand already reaching for the emergency protocols. Not walked in, not teleported with a flash of light, simply existed in a space she hadn't occupied a microsecond earlier. We need to talk about Earth's defense infrastructure, she said. Cecil stopped, took in her appearance. The modified costume, the way reality seemed to bend slightly around her, the complete absence of doubt in her posture. The screens, he said, are mine. I'm using them. You hacked the entire GDA network, made them do what I needed. It's not hacking if you're rewriting the physical structure of the hardware. Cecil's jaw tightened. That's a violation of every security protocol you have. Yes. Eve walked past him toward the command center. We can discuss protocol violations later. Right now, you need to see what I've found. 50 personnel staring at the teenage girl who just commandeered their entire system. Eve gestured. The pink screens resolved into images, satellite footage, thermal scans, trajectory calculations. This is the Flaxen Empire, she said. Interdimensional invaders. In the original timeline, they attacked through a portal in Utah 3 days from now. Their technology is decades ahead of ours. Their first incursion killed 17,000 people before Mark stopped them. She pulled up more data. This is Machine Head's criminal network. He has a predictive algorithm that anticipates GDA raids. In 6 weeks, he'll hire Battle Beast as muscle. The fight will level 8 city blocks. 43 casualties. More images. The Mauler twins will escape custody in 9 days. They'll clone an experimental bioweapon. Unleash it in Chicago. Death toll, 1,200 before containment. Cecil watched the data scroll past. Dates, locations, casualty projections, all presented with absolute certainty. How do you know all this? He asked quietly. Eve turned to face him. Because I lived through it. Every attack, every incident, every disaster. I spent 500 years watching Earth struggle against threats it wasn't prepared for. Watching good people die because we didn't have the intelligence or resources to stop it. The screens shifted again, showed blueprints, weapon schematics, technology that looked like science fiction. I can prevent all of it, Eve said. But I need access, real access, not just to the GDA, to everything. Military installations, research facilities, weapons development. I need to upgrade Earth's defensive capabilities before the Empire notices we've captured Nolan. One of the analysts spoke up. With respect, ma'am, you're asking for unrestricted access to every classified facility on the planet. No one has that kind of clearance. Not even Director Stedman. I'm not asking for clearance, Eve said. I'm informing you of what's going to happen. You can facilitate it and maintain some oversight. Or you can resist and watch me do it anyway without your input. Choose. Cecil crossed his arms. And if I say no, if I activate containment protocols, flood this room with sonic dampeners, and lock you down? Your sonic dampeners won't work on me, Eve said. I can transmute the sound waves before they reach my inner ear, turn them into light, or heat, or nothing at all. Your containment cells are reinforced steel. I can make steel into hydrogen gas. Your weapons fire bullets. I can make bullets into flowers. She stepped closer to Cecil. I'm not your enemy, Director. I'm offering to work with you, to share intelligence, to coordinate. But make no mistake, Earth's defense is happening, with or without GDA cooperation. The only variable is whether you're part of the solution or an obstacle to remove. The command center was dead silent. Every person present understood they were watching a fundamental power shift. The moment when humanity's defense apparatus learned it was no longer the apex authority. Cecil Stedman had built his career on maintaining control, on being the man who made the impossible decisions, on leveraging every resource, manipulating every variable, ensuring Earth's survival through pure, ruthless pragmatism. He looked at Eve, at the teenage girl who could unmake reality, who claimed to have lived for 5 centuries, who held more power than every weapon in his arsenal combined, and made a decision. Show me the flaxen portal, he said. Eve's expression shifted, not quite a smile, just acknowledgement that he'd made the smart choice. The screens changed, showed real-time satellite imagery of Utah, a specific canyon, thermal anomalies, dimensional stress readings. The portal generator is on the other side, Eve said. Their dimension has accelerated time. Decades pass there while hours pass here. They've been preparing this invasion for subjective centuries, building weapons, training armies, waiting for the right moment. When? Cecil asked. 72 hours. The dimensional barrier is weakening. They've been testing it for weeks. Small probes, reconnaissance drones. In 3 days, they'll commit to a full military incursion. Confirm her data. Cross-reference with our dimensional monitoring stations. The analyst's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulled up classified readings, compared them to Eve's projections. His face went pale. Sir, she's right. The dimensional stress patterns match exactly. We've been tracking anomalies in that region for 2 weeks, flagged it as potential concern, but hadn't identified the source. Cecil nodded slowly. What's your solution? I close the portal, Eve said. Permanently. I reach through dimensions and transmute their generator into inert matter. No portal, no invasion. That simple? For me, yes. Cecil pulled up a tactical display. What about retaliation? If you destroy their invasion route, won't they just find another way in? They'll try, Eve agreed. So I'll destroy every portal generator in their network. All of them, simultaneously. Make it physically impossible for them to reach Earth. One of the analysts spoke up. That's an act of war. Destroying another civilization's infrastructure. I'm eliminating a threat before it manifests. That's not war. That's defense. Cecil studied her. You've done this before, in your timeline. Yes. Took me 3 tries to figure out the dimensional mathematics. This time I already know how. I can do it in 1. What else? Cecil asked. What other threats are you planning to neutralize? Eve gestured. The screens filled with images. Villains, monsters, disasters waiting to happen. Machine Head's network. Dismantled, his predictive algorithm disabled. The Mauler twins. Reformed. I'll alter their brain chemistry. Remove homicidal impulses while preserving their intelligence. Battle Beast. Redirected. I know what he values. I can make him leave Earth alone. The Lizard League contained. Biplane. Captured. Every 2-bit supervillain who thinks they can threaten this planet. Neutralized permanently. Cecil's eyes narrowed. You're talking about global operations, simultaneous strikes across dozens of targets. The logistics alone. I don't need logistics, Director. I just need targets. You provide the intelligence. I provide the execution. One of Cecil's senior advisors stepped forward. This is insane. We can't just give a 17-year-old carte blanche to attack whoever she deems a threat. There are protocols, international laws, Geneva Conventions. Don't apply to me, Eve said. She looked at the advisor. I'm not a soldier. I'm not bound by your rules of engagement. I'm a force of nature that happens to care about keeping Earth safe. You can work with me and guide my actions, or you can watch me work and hope I don't accidentally step on something you care about. Your choice. The advisor looked at Cecil. Sir, Earth is facing extinction-level threats. The Viltrumite Empire, interdimensional invaders, cosmic entities we haven't even identified yet. Our current defensive capabilities are insufficient. Eve is offering to upgrade them. We'd be fools to refuse. He turned to Eve. But I have conditions. State them, weekly briefings. Full transparency on your operations. No civilian casualties. No collateral damage beyond what's absolutely necessary. And if you cross the line, if you become the threat we need protection from, we reserve the right to try to stop you. Even though you can't? Eve asked. Even though we can't, Cecil agreed. Call it human stubbornness. We need to maintain the illusion that we have some oversight, some control. Even if we both know the truth. Eve considered this acceptable. I'll provide weekly briefings, full operational transparency, minimize collateral damage, and if I ever become a threat to humanity, you have my permission to try everything in your power to stop me. I won't make it easy, but I'll allow the attempt. That's almost reassuring, Cecil said dryly. Almost. It would be more reassuring if I thought we had any chance of success. Eve's expression softened fractionally. You don't. But I appreciate the gesture. It means you're still thinking like defenders, still trying to protect people from all threats, including me. That's good. That's human. She turned back to the displays. Now, let's discuss the upgrades. Every GDA facility needs reinforcement, stronger walls, better weapons, enhanced surveillance. I can do it all in 48 hours. What's the cost? Cecil asked. Resources? Materials? Nothing. I'm transmuting existing matter, rearranging atoms. The building materials are already here. I'm just telling them to be something better. Showed the global network of GDA installations. All of them, simultaneously. I can split my consciousness, work on multiple locations at once. By Thursday, every GDA facility on Earth will be capable of withstanding nuclear strikes. Every weapon will be upgraded to Viltrumite killing capability. Every operative will have access to technology decades ahead of what they're using now. One of the analysts spoke up again. That's impossible. The computational power alone to coordinate is nothing compared to what I'm already processing, Eve said. I'm maintaining a pocket dimension, monitoring global threats, training Mark, tracking Viltrumite Empire fleet movements, and having this conversation. All simultaneously, upgrading a few hundred buildings is trivial. Cecil shook his head. What are you? Evolution? Eve said simply. 500 years of forced adaptation. I'm what happens when you push someone past every limit, past death, past humanity, past anything that could break them. I'm what's left when everything else burns away. The command center was silent again, personnel exchanging glances. Realizing that the rules had fundamentally changed, that Earth's defense was no longer in their hands. All right, Cecil said. We'll coordinate. I'll send you facility access codes, weapon specifications, target lists, everything you need. Good. Eve started to shimmer, reality bending around her. I'm going to Utah first, closing the Flaxen portal, then I'll start the facility upgrades. Expect the first upgrades to be complete by tonight. Tonight? Cecil asked. Eve, that's plenty of time, she interrupted. Director, you're going to have to recalibrate your understanding of what's possible. The old limitations don't apply anymore. Earth has a god now. A very motivated, very protective god. Get used to it. She vanished, didn't teleport, didn't fly away, just stopped existing in that location. The command center erupted in controlled chaos. Analysts confirming data, advisors arguing about protocols, personnel trying to process what had just happened. Cecil stood in the center of it all, silent, thinking. His second-in-command approached. "Sir, should we activate?" "No," Cecil said. "We're not activating anything. We're cooperating, fully. She's right. We can't stop her. Can't contain her. Can't even slow her down. Our only option is to work with her, guide her when we can. Hope she doesn't go completely off the rails." He pulled up a secure terminal, began typing authorization codes. "Send her everything," he said. "Facility access, weapon specs, intelligence reports. All of it. If she's going to be Earth's defense, she needs the tools to do it right. And if she betrays us," Cecil looked at his second, "then we were already lost and just didn't know it yet. But I don't think she will. Did you see her face when she talked about Mark? That wasn't calculation. That was love. Obsessive, terrifying love, but real." He pulled up the satellite feed of Utah, watched the thermal anomalies in the canyon. She's protecting him, and by extension, protecting Earth. That gives us leverage, common ground, a shared goal we can work toward. On the screen, pink energy suddenly flooded the canyon. Eve had arrived. The dimensional portal that had been slowly weakening for weeks suddenly stabilized, then sealed, then ceased to exist entirely. The flaxen generator on the other side, visible for a brief moment through the closing portal, transmuted, became inert matter, useless metal. The entire operation took 12 seconds. Cecil watched in silence. "Sir," his analyst said quietly, "I'm reading dimensional closures across the entire Flaxen network. Every portal generator. She's destroying all of them. Every single access point to Earth." Cecil nodded slowly. "How many?" This is an act of total warfare." "No," Cecil corrected. "It's an act of total defense. She's removing the threat completely, making sure they can never reach us again." He turned away from the screens, walked back toward his office. His second followed. "What do we do now, sir?" "Clearing space for weekly briefings with a teenage god." "We adapt," he said. "We learn to work with her. We provide intelligence and guidance. We try to keep her focused on external threats instead of internal ones. And we hope that 500 years of trauma hasn't completely destroyed her capacity for mercy." "No," Cecil agreed, "but it's the only one we have. Earth has a guardian now. A very powerful, very damaged guardian who's decided we're worth protecting. Our job is to make sure she stays on our side. Earth from orbit, blue and fragile and beautiful. Because if she ever decides we're not worth it, if she ever looks at humanity the way she looked at those portal generators, didn't need to." His second understood perfectly. They all did. Earth's greatest defender had just become its most dangerous liability, and there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. Mark's school day passed in a blur. He sat through classes without hearing the lectures, copied notes without reading them, moved through hallways in a daze while his classmates chatted about homework and weekend plans, and all the normal things that didn't matter anymore. Because his father was a monster. Because aliens existed. Because the entire universe was more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. Because Eve had changed into something terrifying and wonderful, and he didn't know how to process any of it. William caught up with him at lunch. "Dude, you look like death. What's going on?" Mark stared at his food tray. "Family stuff. Your dad." "Yeah." William waited for elaboration. When none came, he switched tactics. "So, Eve quit Teen Team. Did you hear?" Mark's head snapped up. "What?" "Yeah, it's all over the news. She just walked out yesterday. Apparently she and Rex had some kind of fight. Kate's saying Eve went crazy, transmuted Rex's costume into lead or something." "She did what?" "I know, right? Total overkill for a breakup. But man, have you seen her lately? She's different, like scary different. Remember when she used to smile all the time? Now she just..." William made a face, stares at people, like she's seeing through them. "Amber was asking about you, by the way. Wanted to know if you were okay. I think she's worried. And now Eve's gone full supervillain on Teen Team, and your dad's mysteriously absent, and..." William stopped, lowered his voice. "Mark, seriously, what's going on?" Mark wanted to tell him. wanted to explain that his father was an alien infiltrator, that the planet was under threat from an empire of superpowered conquerors, that his best friend's ex-girlfriend had somehow become the most powerful being on Earth and was obsessively focused on protecting him. But he couldn't. The words wouldn't come. "I can't talk about it," Mark said finally. "Not yet. But will?" He met his friend's eyes. "If something happens, if things get weird, I need you to trust me, okay? Trust that I'm trying to do the right thing." William's expression shifted to concern. "You're scaring me, man." "Yeah," Mark said. "I'm scaring me too." Didn't make it 3 steps before the intercom crackled. "Mark Grayson, please report to the main office." William shot him a look. "Again? That's twice this week." Just walked toward the office, his enhanced hearing already picking up the conversation happening inside. "Understand this is highly irregular, Principal Winslow." "I understand completely, Miss Wilkins, but I can't just release a student into someone's custody without parental consent. His mother has been notified. She's consented." Eve stood there, still in her modified costume. The principal looked uncomfortable. The secretary was staring. "Eve?" Mark asked. "What's—" "I can't just—" "Yes, you can." She turned to the principal. "Mark won't be attending school for the rest of the week, possibly longer. Family emergency. His mother has been informed." Principal Winslow shifted nervously. "Miss Wilkins, even with parental consent, I can't authorize—" "Mark is leaving with me," Eve said quietly. "Right now, you're going to mark him as excused. You're going to forget this conversation, and you're going to go back to your normal day. Understood?" His eyes were slightly unfocused. Compliant, Eve took Mark's hand, led him out of the office, through the hallway, past staring students, out into the parking lot. "Did you just—" Mark pulled his hand free. "Did you just mind control my principal?" Made him more suggestible. "It'll wear off in an hour. That's mind control. That's expedience." Eve turned to face him. "Mark, we don't have time for this. Conquest and Anissa are accelerating their approach. They'll be here in 4 weeks instead of 6. I need you trained, protected, ready." They're moving faster than in the original timeline. Probably because Nolan's silence is making them suspicious. She grabbed his hand again. "We're going to my training facility now. I can't just disappear. My mom has been contacted. She knows you're with me. She knows you're safe. That's all that matters." Eve pulled him into the air. Mark's flight instincts kicked in automatically. They rose above the school, above the city, heading toward the mountains. "Where are we going?" Mark shouted over the wind. "Somewhere no one can interrupt us," Eve called back. They flew for 20 minutes. The city fell away. Suburbs gave way to wilderness. They crossed mountain ranges Mark didn't recognize, headed into terrain so remote it barely appeared on maps. Eve descended into a valley, hidden between peaks, surrounded by forest, no roads, no buildings, no signs of civilization. Then she gestured. The air shimmered. Reality bent. A structure materialized, a massive facility that hadn't been visible from above. Camouflaged, hidden using principles that made Mark's eyes hurt to look at. They landed on a platform. The facility was huge, multiple levels carved into the mountainside. Training grounds, equipment storage, living quarters, everything needed for extended isolation. "When did you build this?" Mark asked. "Last night," Eve said. "Took me 3 hours. Transmuted the rock, shaped it into what I needed. This is your home for the next month." "Eve, I can't just—" "Yes, you can." She led him inside. The corridors were pristine, advanced, technology that looked decades ahead of anything Mark had seen. "Your mother knows, Cecil knows. Everyone who needs to know has been informed. You're safe here, protected. And you're going to train until you can survive what's coming." Mark stopped walking. "I don't want this. Any of this. I didn't ask to be half alien. Didn't ask to have powers. Didn't ask to be the target of some galactic empire." Eve turned. Her expression softened. Just slightly. "I know," she said quietly. "I know this isn't fair, that you deserve a normal life, normal problems. But Mark," she stepped closer, "the universe doesn't care what's fair. It's going to come for you whether you're ready or not, whether you want it or not. My job is to make sure you survive when it does. By kidnapping me, by protecting you. There's a difference." Mark laughed bitterly. "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, this looks a lot like imprisonment." Eve's jaw tightened. "You can leave whenever you want. I'm not holding you prisoner. But if you leave, If you go back to your normal life, you'll be vulnerable, exposed. And when Conquest arrives, when he comes looking for Nolan's hybrid son, I won't be able to protect you if you're scattered across a dozen different locations. Here, I can defend you, can train you, can make sure that when the Empire comes, you're strong enough to stand against them. That's not imprisonment, Mark. That's survival training. Wanted to go home and pretend none of this was happening, but he couldn't, because he'd seen his father imprisoned, had heard Nolan's confession, had learned that the universe was full of beings that made terrestrial supervillains look like amateurs. What about my mom? Mark asked quietly. She's alone. If something happens, she's under GDA protection, Eve said. 24-hour surveillance, armed guards. I've personally reinforced your house, made it capable of withstanding orbital bombardment. She's safer than she's ever been. She must be terrified. She's strong, stronger than you know, and she understands that this is necessary. Eve led him deeper into the facility, showed him the training rooms, the equipment, the advanced simulators that could replicate Viltrumite combat scenarios. You'll train 8 hours a day, Eve said. Physical conditioning, flight dynamics, combat techniques, strategy, power control, everything you need to survive against opponents stronger and more experienced than you. They reached a viewing platform overlooking the main training arena. The space was massive, reinforced walls, gravity generators, environmental controls. I'll be with you, Eve continued. Every session, every exercise, every moment, you won't be alone in this. Mark looked at her, really looked, at the ancient eyes, at the terrible certainty, at the fierce protectiveness that bordered on madness. Why do you care so much? He asked. I mean, I get that we're friends, but this is more than friendship. The way you look at me, the things you're doing, it's like I'm the only thing in the world that matters to you. Eve was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you are. That's not healthy. Probably not, she agreed. But it's what I am now, what I had to become. I spent 500 years watching people I cared about die, watching the world burn, watching everything good turn to ash. And I learned something terrible, Mark. I learned that caring about everyone means saving no one. That trying to protect the whole world means losing the pieces that actually matter. So I made a choice. I chose you. I chose to make you the priority, the thing I protect above all else. And if that means I become obsessive, overbearing, a monster who'll burn the universe to keep you safe, she stepped closer. Then that's what I'll be. Because you being alive, you being whole, you being the good, kind, heroic person you're meant to be, that's worth more to me than anything else. More than my humanity, more than my sanity, more than the entire rest of the universe combined. Mark stared at her. That's terrifying. I know. Not going to ease up. Not going to give me space to breathe. No. Mark turned away, looked out at the training arena, at the facility Eve had built in a single night, at the evidence of her obsessive need to protect him. What if I asked you to, he said quietly. What if I told you this was too much? That I need you to back off, to let me live my life. Eve was silent for several heartbeats. Then, I'd try. I'd want to respect your wishes, want to give you the space you're asking for, but Mark, the part of me that could do that died in the original timeline. What's left is just... She searched for words. Protection. Function. The absolute certainty that you survive. Nothing else computes anymore. Mark closed his eyes. I don't know if I can handle this, living under this kind of... He gestured vaguely. Intense focus. It's like being under a microscope. Every moment, every decision, you watching, analyzing, controlling. I'm not trying to control you, Eve said. I'm trying to keep you alive. Is there a difference? Yes. I don't care how you live, what choices you make, who you love, what kind of hero you become. I just care that you keep breathing, keep existing. Everything else is yours to decide. Mark turned back to her. Promise me something. Anything. You'll actually hear me instead of just calculating how to protect me better. Eve's expression showed conflict, pain, the ancient consciousness fighting against its primary programming. I promise, she said finally. I'll try. I can't guarantee I'll succeed. Can't guarantee the protective instinct won't override everything else. But I'll try to hear you, to respect your boundaries, to remember that you're a person, not just the thing I'm protecting. That's all I can ask for, Mark said. They stood together on the viewing platform. guardian and protected, obsessed defender and reluctant ward. Two people bound together by circumstance and tragedy and a love so fierce it had rewritten causality. "All right," Mark said. "Let's start training." "But Eve," he met her gaze, "I need one thing first." "What?" "I need to see my mom, just for an hour. Let her know I'm okay, that I'm not." He gestured at the facility, being held against my will. Eve considered this. Every protective instinct screamed against it, against letting Mark leave her sight, against exposing him to potential threats. But she just promised to listen, to respect his needs. "1 hour," she said. "I'll fly you home, you talk to your mother. Then we come back and start training immediately. Agreed?" "Agreed." Out into open air, flew back toward civilization, toward Mark's house, toward his mother who was probably terrified and confused and desperate for answers. As they flew, Mark glanced at Eve, at the ancient thing that loved him with world-burning intensity, and wondered if he'd just made a deal he couldn't keep. The Mahler twins' laboratory was hidden beneath an abandoned factory in Detroit. Most people would never find it. The entrance was concealed behind false walls and inactive machinery. The security systems were military-grade. The twins had spent years building this sanctuary for their experiments. Eve found it in 4 seconds. She didn't bother with doors. Simply phased through 60 feet of concrete and steel, materialized in the center of their main lab while they were mid-argument. "Telling you I'm the original," one of the Maulers shouted. "No, you're the clone. I have the scar from—" They both stopped, stared at the teenage girl who'd appeared in their supposedly impenetrable fortress. Eve looked around the lab. Cloning tanks, genetic sequencers, the experimental bioweapon they'd been developing. In the original timeline, this weapon had killed 1,200 people before the GDA contained it. Not this time. "Gentlemen," Eve said, "we need to talk about your future." The left Mauler reached for a weapon. Eve gestured. The gun transmuted into rubber, useless. "I'm not here to fight," she continued. "I'm here to offer you a choice." The right Mauler backed toward a control panel, probably planning to trigger some security protocol. Eve didn't stop him, just watched as he pressed the alarm. Nothing happened. "Your security systems are offline," Eve said. "I disabled them when I arrived. Every weapon, every defense, every escape route, all of it is under my control now." Both Maulers froze. "Who are you?" the left one demanded. "Adam Eve. And I'm here because in 3 weeks, you're going to escape GDA custody. You're going to release that bioweapon," she pointed at the containment unit, "into downtown Chicago. 1,200 people will die before containment. Children, families, people who never did anything to deserve that kind of death." "We would never," the right Mauler started. "Yes, you would," Eve interrupted. "Because you're both brilliant and amoral. Because your curiosity overrides your empathy. You're not evil, exactly, just broken in ways that make you dangerous." She walked toward them slowly. "So here's your choice. Option 1, I alter your brain chemistry, remove the sociopathic tendencies, leave your intelligence intact but make you actually care about the consequences of your actions. You'll still be geniuses. You'll just be geniuses who won't kill people for data." That's mind control," the left Mauler said. "Yes," Eve agreed. "Option 2, I transmute you both into glass and display you in the GDA lobby as a warning to other supervillains. You'll be technically alive, but completely non-functional, conscious but unable to move or think clearly. A vegetative state that lasts until someone decides you've suffered enough. Option 3, you voluntarily surrender to the GDA. Offer your services to humanity. Use your genius for good instead of profit or curiosity. Work on curing diseases, solving problems, making the world better instead of more dangerous." The Maulers exchanged glances. "That's not a choice," the right one said. "That's coercion." "Yes," Eve said. "But you're getting a choice at all, which is more than the 1,200 people you were going to kill would have gotten. Choose. Now. And if we refuse all 3 options, then I default to option 2 and move on to my next target. I have 17 supervillains to neutralize today. You're number 3. I don't have time for extended negotiations." They looked at each other again, some kind of twin communication. Then the right Mauler spoke. "Option 3, we'll surrender. Work with the GDA. But we want protections. Legal immunity for past crimes. Access to resources, guarantee we won't be used for unethical experiments." Eve pulled out a communicator, pressed a button. Cecil's voice came through immediately. "Eve? Status? Mauler twins are surrendering voluntarily. They want immunity and proper working conditions. Can you arrange that? A pause. Then, yes, we've been wanting to recruit them for years. Send me their location. I'll have a team there in 30 minutes. Done. Eve ended the call, looked at the Maulers. GDA will be here shortly. Don't make me come back. And if we change our minds? The left Mauler asked. Decide we don't want to work for the government after all. Eve's eyes glowed pink. The entire laboratory began to shift. Equipment upgraded. Security systems rewrote themselves. The bioweapon containment unit sealed permanently, its contents transmuted into harmless protein. Then I'll know, Eve said. I've tagged you both at the molecular level. If you deviate from your agreement, if you hurt anyone, if you even think about releasing another bioweapon, I'll feel it. And I'll be back. Instantly. She phased through the floor. Disappeared. The Maulers stood in their upgraded lab, looked at each other. She's insane, one said. She's terrifying, the other agreed. We're really doing this? Working for the government? Do we have a choice? They looked at where Eve had stood, at the evidence of her casual, absolute power. No, they said in unison. We really don't. The technology gave him a 6-hour window on GDA movements, enough time to stay ahead of raids, to move assets, to remain untouchable. The algorithm hadn't predicted Eve. She materialized in front of his desk. One moment, empty air. The next, a teenage girl radiating impossible power. Machine Head's bodyguards moved, raised weapons, fired. The bullets transmuted mid-flight, became flower petals, drifted to the floor harmlessly. Eve gestured. The bodyguards' weapons became water, splashed across the carpet. The men themselves froze, muscles locked at the molecular level. Mr. Head, Eve said, your criminal empire ends today. Machine Head's hands moved toward a panic button. Eve transmuted the entire desk into sand. It collapsed. The panic button tumbled uselessly to the floor. Your predictive algorithm is impressive, Eve continued, but it can't predict me. I exist outside the causality it's designed to track. I'm not part of the timeline it's analyzing. In 4 weeks, you were going to hire Battle Beast. The fight between him and the Guardians would have leveled 8 city blocks, 43 casualties, hundreds more injured. All because you wanted to prove you couldn't be touched. Machine Head's face showed fear. Real, genuine terror. How do you know? I know everything, Eve interrupted. Every crime you've committed, every plan you've made, every person you've hurt. I know it all, and I'm here to make it stop. Machine Head flinched. I could kill you, Eve said. Turn your brain to jelly. But killing isn't the point. The point is removing threats. So here's what happens. Your organization dissolves. Today, right now, every asset seized, every operative arrested, every piece of illegal technology disabled. Her hand moved to the microchip implanted in his skull, the one running his predictive algorithm. Starting with this, the chip's circuitry transmuted, advanced silicon became ordinary carbon. Useless. Dead. Machine Head gasped. His eyes went wide. The constant stream of data he'd relied on for years suddenly gone. The future he'd been able to see vanished. You're blind now, Eve said. Just like everyone else. And every piece of equipment in your network just experienced the same fate. Your empire is over. She released him. Pulled out her communicator, Cecil, Machine Head's penthouse, top floor. He's ready for pickup. His entire organization should be non-functional. Confirm? Cecil's voice came back. Confirmed. We're reading massive system failures across his entire network. Every piece of tech just went dark. Eve, what did you... Looked at Machine Head, slumped in his chair, surrounded by useless sand and flower petals. Find a legal job, she said. Or the next time we meet, I won't be this merciful. Blind, powerless, broken. His bodyguards unfroze, looked around at the destruction. Sir, one of them asked, what do we do? Machine Head didn't answer, just stared at where the teenage god had stood, and wondered if there was anywhere in the universe she couldn't reach. The Lizard League's base was underwater, 50 feet below Lake Michigan, hidden, secure. They'd been planning an attack on Chicago for months. Biological weapons, designed to turn humans into reptilian slaves. Eve appeared in the center of their command chamber. Water should have flooded in, should have crushed the structure. But Eve simply told the water not to enter. told the pressure differential to be something else. Reality obeyed. King Lizard turned from his tactical display, saw her, hissed, "Mammal, how did you—" Eve raised her hand. Every member of the Lizard League froze. Molecular stasis, complete paralysis. "I don't have time for monologuing," Eve said. "Your biological weapon gets disabled. Your base gets sealed permanently. You get transferred to GDA containment. Non-negotiable. The viral samples they'd been cultivating transmuted everything to inert protein, found their breeding chambers, the eggs waiting to hatch into new warriors, made them non-viable, still alive but incapable of developing the aggressive traits, found their communication systems, disabled them, cut them off from whatever larger lizard society existed. The entire operation took 8 minutes. When she was done, she unsealed the base, let the lake water flood in, watched it fill the chambers while the Lizard League remained frozen, trapped in their own fortress. The GDA submarine would find them in 3 hours, extract them, imprison them. Eve returned to the surface, stood on the lake shore, pulled up her mental checklist. Mauler twins, neutralized. Machine Head, neutralized. Flaxen Empire, neutralized. 14 more targets to go. She flew toward Cincinnati. Biplane was operating there. Small-time villain, not particularly dangerous. But in the original timeline, his rampage had killed 6 people. 6 people who would live now. Because Eve was removing the threats before they could manifest. She found him robbing a bank, literally mid-robbery. Customers on the floor. Guards tied up. Biplane stuffing cash into bags. Eve appeared behind him. Transmuted his weaponry, transmuted his actual plane, the experimental aircraft bonded to his body, into ordinary cloth. Biplane collapsed. The mechanical enhancement that had given him powers simply gone. He was just a man now, weak, normal, harmless. Eve left him for the police, moved to the next target, and the next, and the next. She worked through the day like an avenging angel, appeared, neutralized the threat, disappeared, no speeches, no dramatic confrontations, just cold, efficient elimination of danger. By sunset, 17 supervillains had been removed from operation. Some imprisoned, some reformed, some simply stripped of their powers and left to contemplate normal lives. The global superhuman crime rate dropped 40% in a single day. News networks couldn't explain it. Analysts struggled to find patterns. The GDA's official statement was enhanced enforcement protocols. Only Cecil knew the truth, that Earth had a god, and she decided to clean house. Eve returned to her orbital platform at midnight, exhausted. Not physically, her power didn't tire her, but mentally, emotionally, the weight of all those decisions, all those lives altered, all those choices made on behalf of people who'd never asked for her intervention. She sat in the command chair, pulled up the global threat board, watched the numbers shift, crime down, casualties down, incidents down. Earth was safer, objectively, measurably safer. So why did she feel empty? Her communicator buzzed. Mark's signature, she answered immediately. "Eve, where are you? You said you'd be back by dinner." She'd forgotten, had been so focused on threat elimination that she'd forgotten her promise to return to the training facility. "I'm sorry," Eve said. "I got caught up in work. I'm coming back now." "Work? Eve, it's midnight. What have you been doing?" "Making Earth safer. I'll explain when I get there." She ended the call, flew toward the mountain facility, toward Mark, toward the only thing that made any of this feel worthwhile. As she flew, she thought about the 17 villains she'd neutralized, about the lives saved, the disasters prevented, the future rewritten, and wondered if any of them would have chosen this, if anyone would have consented to having their brain chemistry altered, their powers removed, their entire existence restructured by someone who'd decided she knew better. Probably not, but they were alive, and they weren't killing anyone, and Earth was safer. That had to be enough. It had to be. Because if it wasn't, if this crusade of protection was just her trauma finding new ways to manifest, then what was she doing? What had she become? Eve pushed the thoughts away, focused on flying, on returning to Mark, on the training that would keep him safe when conquest arrived. Everything else was noise. Everything else was irrelevant. As long as Mark survived, the cost was acceptable. Even if that cost was her own humanity. Even if that cost was becoming exactly the kind of monster she'd once fought against. Even if the Viltrumite reconnaissance ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 2 warriors aboard, both ancient, both powerful, both confused. Conquest stood at the viewport, arms crossed, his scarred face showing rare concern. 3 weeks. No transmission, no confirmation. Nolan's beacon is completely dark. Anissa ran diagnostics from the tactical station. The last signal showed mission success, Guardians eliminated, Earth's defenses compromised, then nothing. Could be equipment failure, Conquest said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe it. Viltrumite communicators don't fail, Anissa countered. They're built to survive planetary destruction. If Nolan's beacon is dark, it's because something stopped it, or stopped him. Conquest's jaw tightened. Earth is a primitive world. Technology centuries behind ours. Military capabilities laughable. What could possibly threaten a Viltrumite operative? Unknown variables, Anissa said. She pulled up scan data. But I'm reading unusual energy signatures from the planet, atmospheric modifications, defensive installations that weren't there during Nolan's last report. Show me. The displays shifted, showed Earth's orbital space, satellites, platforms, technology that registered as far more advanced than it should be. That's not human construction, Conquest said. The energy patterns are wrong. The materials are... He stopped, studied the data, transmuted. Someone's been altering matter at the atomic level, building defenses that shouldn't be possible with Earth's technology. Nolan? Anissa suggested. Why would he upgrade their defenses? His mission was sabotage, not construction. They exchanged glances, both warriors, both veterans of 1,000 campaigns, both feeling something they rarely experienced, uncertainty. We need answers, Conquest said. Take us in. Combat approach, full defensive posture. The ship accelerated, crossed the distance to Earth in minutes, descended through the atmosphere. Eve detected them the moment they entered the solar system. She'd been training Mark, hand-to-hand combat, using her matter manipulation to create opponents that moved like Viltrumites, when her orbital sensors triggered. 2 signatures, both Viltrumite, both powerful, right on schedule. Maybe even a few days early, Mark, she said. Training's over, get to the shelter. Mark was breathing hard, bruised from the sparring. What? Why? Conquest and Anissa, just like I said they'd be. Mark's face went pale. All ready, but you said we had more time. Plans change. Shelter now. The facility is designed to hide you. Stay there until I come back. I can help. I've been training. I can... No. Eve's voice was iron. You're not ready. Not for this. These aren't the practice opponents I've been creating. These are actual Viltrumite warriors with centuries of combat experience. You engage them now, you die. Stay. Hidden. Let me handle this. She didn't wait for his agreement, just transmuted the floor beneath him, dropped him through multiple levels into the secure shelter she'd built, sealed it behind him with matter so dense not even Viltrumite strength could breach it. Then she flew, straight up, through the facility's ceiling, into open sky, toward the approaching signatures. Conquest and Anissa landed in Washington, D.C., right on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. It was a power move. Deliberate, show the humans where they stood in the hierarchy. Make them understand that Viltrumites went where they pleased. Anissa's voice boomed across the city, enhanced by Viltrumite physiology. People of Earth, we are representatives of the Viltrumite Empire. We come seeking our brother, Nolan Grayson. Deliver him to us, or face consequences. Civilians ran. Panic rippled outward. The Guardians started moving toward the threat. None of them arrived before Eve did. She materialized directly in front of the 2 Viltrumites. No flight trajectory, no approach vector, just instant translocation from wherever she'd been to this exact spot. Conquest and Anissa stared. Who are you? Anissa demanded. The reason Nolan stopped transmitting, Eve said. The reason Earth's defenses have improved. The reason you're about to fail. Earth sends a child to negotiate? I'm not negotiating, Eve corrected. I'm explaining. Nolan is contained. He won't be reporting back to your empire. Earth is no longer a viable target. You're going to leave. Right now. And you're going to tell Thrag that this planet is off limits. Anissa laughed. It was a sharp, mocking sound. You think you can threaten Viltrumite warriors? We've conquered hundreds of worlds. Killed thousands of. Her fist aimed at Eve's skull with enough force to pulverize concrete. The fist stopped, not because Eve blocked it, because Anissa's arm transmuted to marble mid-strike. Anissa looked down in shock. Her entire right arm was stone, heavy, useless. She could feel it, the wrongness, the complete cellular restructuring. Conquest roared, charged, his combat instincts overriding caution. Eve didn't move, just gestured. The air around both Viltrumites solidified, became crystalline matter harder than diamond. They were trapped mid-attack, frozen, unable to move. Eve walked around them slowly, studied them like specimens. Viltrumite strength comes from dense cellular structure, she said. Enhanced molecular bonds. Your physiology is impressive, resilient, nearly indestructible by conventional standards. She tapped Conquest's frozen form. But I don't use conventional methods. I simply tell your atoms to be something else, and they obey. Because matter doesn't have loyalty. It doesn't care about your empire or your pride. It just responds to whoever has the strongest will. She released Conquest from stasis. Just him. Left Anissa frozen. Conquest immediately swung, his fist moving with centuries of combat experience behind it. Eve turned his entire body to glass. For exactly 3 seconds. Conquest felt it, the horrible transformation, his Viltrumite flesh becoming crystal, transparent. Fragile, he could see his own organs through his transmuted skin. Then Eve reversed it. He was flesh again, gasping, horrified. I could have kept you like that, Eve said. Could have shattered you, made you into decorative art. I chose not to. Do you understand why? Conquest said nothing, just stared at her with something he hadn't felt in centuries. Fear. Because dead messengers can't deliver warnings, Eve continued. And I need you to deliver a message to Thrag, to the entire empire. Are you listening? Conquest nodded slowly, the proud warrior reduced to compliance. Good. Eve released Anissa from stasis, reversed the marble transmutation. Both Viltrumites stood there, whole again, but completely aware of their helplessness. Earth is under my protection, Eve said. Any Viltrumite who enters this solar system will be destroyed. Not fought, not captured, destroyed. I will transmute them to dust before they can blink. I will atomize their ships. I will reach across space and disassemble anyone who threatens my world. She stepped closer to Conquest. Tell Thrag that I am Adam Eve. Tell him I have lived for 500 years. Tell him I have died and resurrected more times than I can count. Tell him that I have watched everyone I love turn to ash, and I will not allow it to happen again. Her eyes glowed pink. The air around her distorted with power. Tell him that Earth is not a prize to be conquered. It is mine, my garden, my sanctuary, my home, and I will burn the Viltrumite empire to cosmic ash before I let anyone take it from me. Anissa found her voice. You're insane. I've fought your kind for centuries, killed dozens of Viltrumite warriors, learned your weaknesses, your patterns, your limitations, not by their own flight, by Eve's manipulation of the molecules in their bodies. You're strong, she continued, fast, durable. But you're still matter, still atoms arranged in specific patterns, and I can rearrange those patterns however I want, turn you into water, or gold, or nothing at all. She set them down, released them completely. Fly back to your ship, Eve said. Leave this solar system, return to Thrag, and tell him that Earth is classified as forbidden territory, no contact, no infiltration, no conquest. The first Viltrumite who violates that order will learn exactly what I can do when I stop being merciful. Conquest and Anissa exchanged glances, some kind of warrior communication. Then Conquest spoke. Thrag won't accept this. He doesn't respond well to threats. Then he'll learn to, Eve said, or he'll lose warriors. His choice? He's the strongest Viltrumite alive, Anissa said. He's killed beings that made planets tremble. You think you can threaten him? Eve's smile was cold. I don't think. I know, because I killed him in my timeline. It took me 47 tries, 47 deaths and resurrections before I figured out how to transmute him faster than he could move. But I learned. And this time I won't need 47 tries. She raised her hand, the hull of their ship, visible in orbit, began to change. Metal transmuted, letters formed across the entire surface. A mile tall, visible from Earth's surface, mine. That's your message, Eve said. Carry it back. Make sure Thrag understands. Make sure every Viltrumite in the Empire knows. Earth is off limits, forever, at the absolute certainty in this teenage girl's eyes. We'll deliver your message, he said quietly. Good, Eve gestured. Both Viltrumites were suddenly at the edge of the atmosphere, instantaneous translocation. and conquest. Next time is execution. Remember that. The two Viltrumites flew to their ship, entered, engaged engines, fled. Eve watched them go, tracked them all the way to the solar system's edge, made sure they were actually leaving. Only when they jumped to FTL did she relax. Below, the city was in chaos. Civilians had watched the confrontation, seen two Viltramite warriors humiliated, seen a teenage girl treat galaxy-spanning conquerors like irritating children. The footage would spread, go viral, reach every corner of the planet within hours. Let it, Eve thought, let humanity know they're protected. Let the world understand they have a guardian. She flew back to the mountain facility, descended through the ceiling, found Mark exactly where she'd left him, in the secure shelter, pacing, his enhanced hearing probably having picked up every word of the confrontation. Eve unsealed the shelter. Mark emerged, his face showing a mixture of awe and fear. That was, he struggled for words, Eve, they were Viltramites, real ones, and you treated them like they were nothing. They weren't nothing, Eve said. They were dangerous, experienced, deadly. But I've fought worse, survived worse, become worse. She pulled him into a hug, sudden, fierce. Mark froze in surprise. You're safe, Eve whispered. They came for you, for information about Nolan, about Earth's hybrid. But I stopped them. You're safe. Mark hugged her back, awkward, uncertain, but genuine. Thank you, he said quietly, for... He pulled back, looked at her. Eve, what you did to them, turning them to glass. To marble, that's terrifying, Eve finished. Monstrous? Yes, it is, but it's also what keeps you breathing. What keeps Earth free? What prevents the Empire from turning this planet into another conquest statistic? She released him. Stepped back. I'm a monster, Mark. I know that. I've known it for 500 years. But I'm your monster, Earth's monster, and that has to be enough. Mark looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. It is, he said. It is enough. I wish there was another way. Wish you didn't have to be this, carry this weight. There isn't, Eve said. I've looked, searched for 5 centuries across an entire timeline. There's no path where I protect you and stay human. No version where Earth survives and I remain the cheerful teenage hero. The universe doesn't allow that kind of happy ending. Come on, we're not done for today. You need to be stronger, faster, ready for whatever comes next. Eve, I just watched you humiliate 2 Viltramite warriors. What could possibly come next that's worse than that? Eve stopped, looked back at him. Thrag, she said simply. If he decides Earth is worth his personal attention, if he comes himself, that's what comes next. Mark's face paled. And can you beat him? I did once, Eve said. 47 tries later, but yes. I can beat him, I can beat anything, as long as you stay safe, as long as you survive. Now come on, we're working on impact resistance today. You're going to learn to take hits from beings that can shatter mountains. Mark followed her into the arena, still processing what he'd witnessed, still trying to reconcile the girl he'd known with the god she'd become. But he trusted her, despite everything, despite the obsessive protection and the casual godhood and the 500 years of trauma. He trusted her to keep him safe, and Eve would, no matter the cost, no matter what she had to become. Always. The Viltramite throne ship Warworld Alpha drifted in the void between star systems. Thrag stood in the command chamber, watching the holographic display. Conquest and Anissa's report played for the 3rd time. Every detail recorded, every moment of their humiliation preserved. The Grand Regent's expression remained neutral, unreadable. But the assembled warriors knew their leader well enough to recognize the signs, the slight tension in his jaw, the way his fingers drummed once against the armrest. Thrag was angry. Play it again, he commanded. The hologram reset, showed Adam Eve materializing, showed Anissa's arm turning to marble, showed conquest transmuted to glass, showed both warriors, veterans of 1,000 campaigns, reduced to helpless observers of their own defeat. The display ended with the image carved into their ship's hull. One word, a mile tall. Mine. Thrag gestured. The hologram froze on that final image. Opinions, he said. The assembled commanders shifted. Nobody wanted to speak first. Making the wrong assessment in front of Thrag could be fatal. Finally, Lucan stepped forward. the veteran warrior who'd survived more battles than most of the crew combined. "The girl is clearly advanced," Lucan said carefully. "Her matter manipulation exceeds anything we've encountered. Conquest's report indicates she can transmute living tissue faster than Viltrumite reflexes can respond." "Can she be killed?" Thrag asked. "Unknown, Grand Regent. Her claim of resurrection—" "I didn't ask about her claims," Thrag interrupted. "I asked if she can be killed." Lucan paused. "Everything can be killed, Grand Regent. The question is cost. Elaborate." "If her abilities are as demonstrated, a standard assault team would be insufficient. She could transmute warriors faster than they could engage. We'd need overwhelming force, simultaneous attack from multiple vectors. Prevent her from focusing on any single target." Thrag stood, walked to the holographic display, studied Eve's frozen image. "She's young," he said, 17 years according to Earth's records. "But she speaks with the authority of someone far older. Claims 500 years of experience. Claims to have killed me." He turned to face his commanders. "I want to know if that's possible. Can humans achieve extended lifespans through their abilities? Can they retain consciousness across resurrection cycles?" One of the science officers spoke up. "We've documented instances of human metahumans with longevity. Resurrection abilities are rare, but not unprecedented. However, maintaining coherent memory across death, that's theoretically possible," Thrag finished. "Yes, Grand Regent. If her cellular regeneration includes neural restoration, if her consciousness is encoded at a quantum level rather than purely biological, the mechanisms exist, we just haven't encountered them in this configuration." Thrag nodded slowly. "So we assume her claims are accurate. She has 5 centuries of combat experience. She's died and resurrected multiple times. She's learned to counter Viltrumite physiology through trial and error." He walked back to his throne, sat, steepled his fingers. "And she's declared Earth untouchable. Drawn a line, made herself the obstacle between the Empire and a primitive world." "Grand Regent," Anissa said. She stood at attention, her voice steady despite the shame of her defeat. "We could assemble a strike force, 20 warriors, coordinate an attack that would result in 20 dead warriors," Thrag said flatly, "and accomplish nothing except proving her point, that we're insects she can swat." The chamber fell silent. "No," Thrag continued. "We're not sending warriors to their deaths. Not yet. First we gather intelligence, study her, learn her patterns, find weaknesses." He gestured at the display. "She's powerful, possibly the most powerful metahuman we've encountered, but power without wisdom is just potential. And she's young, emotional. She made mistakes in that confrontation." "What mistakes, Grand Regent?" Conquest asked. Thrag smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "She showed mercy. Let you live. Let you return with a message. That's compassion, and compassion is weakness." He pulled up another display, showed Earth, showed Mark's location, still hidden from their sensors. But the general area was clear. She's protecting something. Someone. Her intensity suggests personal attachment. Find that attachment, identify it, and we'll have leverage. "The hybrid," Lucan said. "Nolan's son. She mentioned protecting him in her broadcast." "Exactly." Thrag zoomed the display. "Mark Grayson, half Viltrumite, age 17. Earth designation, Invincible. She's focused all her considerable power on keeping him safe. That's not just duty, that's obsession." He turned to his commanders. "We don't attack Earth. Not yet. We watch. We wait, we learn everything about this Adam Eve, her capabilities, her limitations, her attachments. And when we have complete intelligence, when we know exactly how to break her, then we act." "Years if necessary," Thrag said. "Decades, the Empire has existed for millennia. We can be patient. Let her believe she's won. Let her relax her guard. Let time expose her weaknesses. Looked out at the stars. She thinks she's protected Earth, made it untouchable. But she's done something far more dangerous. She's made it interesting, made it a challenge. The Empire doesn't abandon challenges. We overcome them." Thrag turned back to his warriors. "Spread the word. Earth is classified as restricted territory. No contact without my direct authorization. But we maintain surveillance, track everything, every power fluctuation, every appearance, every action this Adam Eve takes." "And when we have enough data?" Conquest asked. Thrag's smile widened. "Then we'll test her, not with warriors she can transmute, with something she can't predict. can't prepare for. Something that will reveal whether she's truly as powerful as she claims. He pulled up the image of Eve one more time, studied it. She's protecting the hybrid. That means the hybrid is her vulnerability, her weakness, and eventually will exploit that weakness, make her choose between her power and her protection, between saving Earth and saving him. She'll choose the hybrid, Lucan said. Yes, Thrag agreed, and that's when we'll have her. Because protecting one person means abandoning everyone else. And Earth's population is 8 billion. She can't save them all, can't be everywhere, can't transmute every threat simultaneously. He dismissed the display, returned to standard operations, monitor Earth, gather data, and wait. Our time will come. It always does. Left Thrag alone in the command chamber, the Grand Regent stood at the viewport, thought about this new variable, this teenage girl who'd humiliated his warriors, who'd declared an entire world off limits. She was powerful, dangerous, possibly unbeatable in direct combat, but Thrag hadn't survived 2,000 years by fighting battles he couldn't win. He'd survived by being patient, strategic, by finding weaknesses others missed. And Eve had a weakness, a glaring, exploitable vulnerability. She cared about Mark, about Earth, about protection and salvation and all the soft human concepts that made beings predictable. Thrag didn't care, didn't feel attachment or compassion or mercy, just cold calculation and absolute certainty and Viltrumite superiority. That was the difference between them. Eve was powerful but human, still capable of being hurt, still vulnerable through her attachments. Thrag was power without limitation, without weakness, without the soft edges that caring created. She'd won the first encounter, but wars weren't decided by single battles. They were decided by who could endure longer, sacrifice more, become more ruthless. And in that contest, Thrag was confident. He would wait, would watch, would learn. And when the moment came, when he understood exactly how to break her, he would act. Earth would fall, the hybrid would be taken, and Eve would learn the same lesson every being who opposed the Empire eventually learned. Power without the will to use it completely was just wasted potential. Thrag had no such limitations. He would show her what true power looked like. Eventually, the shift in the Empire's attention, the focus now directed toward her planet. She pulled up her displays, showed Viltrumite fleet positions. They'd pulled back, shifted observation posture, no immediate attack vectors. Good. The message had been received, but Eve wasn't naive, wasn't foolish enough to think Thrag had given up. She'd fought him for centuries in the original timeline, knew how he thought, how patient he could be, how ruthless. He was planning something, some response that would test her, find her limits, exploit her weaknesses. Let him plan. She'd be ready. Eve pulled up the Mark's biosignature. He was in the training facility, sleeping. Safe. Protected by matter so dense nothing short of a supernova could breach it. Her communicator buzzed. Cecil, Eve, we need to talk about the incident in Washington. The Viltrumites have been warned off. They won't be back, not immediately. The footage has gone global. Every government on Earth is demanding explanations. The UN wants a hearing. China is claiming you violated their airspace when you disabled their surveillance satellites. Russia is... I disabled surveillance satellites? Eve asked. You didn't know. I've been busy. Which satellites? All of them. Every spy satellite in orbit suddenly stopped working 6 hours ago. Transmuted into useless metal. The timing suggests you did it, but... I didn't, Eve said. She pulled up satellite data, checked the orbital network, but I should have. Those satellites were vulnerabilities, could have been hacked by the Empire, used to track Mark's location. Eve, you can't just... I can, and I will. Any system that could compromise Mark's safety gets disabled. No exceptions. Cecil was silent for a moment. You're not even pretending anymore. Not even maintaining the fiction that you care about anything else. Why should I? You know the truth. Everyone who matters knows. I'm here to protect Mark. Everything else is secondary. That's not healthy. Probably not. Eve agreed. But it's effective. Mark is safe. Earth is defended. The Viltrumite Empire has been warned off. Those are the outcomes that matter. And when Thrag tests you, Cecil asked quietly, when he finds some way to make you choose between Mark and everyone else, what then? Eve was silent. Cecil continued, because that's what he'll do. I've read the intelligence you provided. Thrag is patient. Strategic, he'll find your pressure points, make you compromise, force you to reveal your limits. Then I'll deal with it when it happens, Eve said. Will you, or will you sacrifice the world to save one person? If it comes to that? Eve's voice was cold. Yes, I'll sacrifice the world. I'll sacrifice the entire universe. Mark survives. Everything else is negotiable. Jesus, Eve. You knew what I was, Cecil. What I'd become. Don't act surprised now. She ended the call, stood alone on her platform, looked down at Earth. 8 billion people, all of them depending on her protection. All of them secondary to the one person who actually mattered. Cecil was right. Thrag would test her, would create a scenario where she had to choose, had to prioritize, and she would choose Mark. Every time. Without hesitation, that made her a monster, made her exactly the kind of threat Cecil had contingency protocols for. But it also made her the most effective guardian Earth had ever had. Because nothing, not diplomacy, not politics, not moral considerations, would stop her from protecting what she cared about. Thrag thought patience was his advantage, thought he could wait her out, find her weaknesses, exploit her attachments. He was half right. Attachments were weaknesses, but they were also the source of her power, the reason she'd torn through causality to get back here, the fuel that drove 500 years of evolution. Let him plan, let him scheme, let him think he understood her. When he finally made his move, he'd learned the same lesson every other threat had learned. You don't threaten what Adam Eve protects and survive. Not warriors, not empires, not gods, nothing. Eve returned to the facility, found Mark still sleeping, sat beside him, watched him breathe. This was what mattered. This was what she'd sacrificed everything to preserve, and she'd do it again, would burn the universe to ash if that's what it took. Thrag was coming. Eventually, Eve would be ready. Always ready. 3 months after the Viltrumite warning, Earth settled into its new reality. The planet had a god, not a metaphor, not hyperbole. An actual, literal god who could rewrite matter with a thought and had decided humanity was worth protecting. The crime rate had dropped 73% globally. Supervillains either reformed, disappeared, or found themselves imprisoned in facilities they couldn't escape. Wars ended because Eve appeared at conflict zones and transmuted weapons into flowers. Famine decreased because she could create food from raw matter. Disease rates plummeted because she'd upgraded medical technology across every hospital on Earth. The planet was safer, healthier, more prosperous than it had ever been, and utterly dependent on a 17-year-old girl who'd stopped pretending to be human. Mark stood on the roof of the mountain facility, looking at the sunset. 6 months of training, 6 months of improvement. He could fly at supersonic speeds now, could take hits that would pulverize concrete, could fight for hours without tiring. Eve had made him strong, had turned him into the hero he was always meant to be. But the cost gnawed at him. You're thinking too loud, Eve said. She materialized beside him, didn't fly, didn't walk, just existed where she hadn't been a moment before. Sorry, Mark said, just processing everything. Everything? What Earth has become. Mark gestured at the horizon. It's good. People are safer, happier. But Eve, they're terrified of you. The whole planet is terrified. I know, and that doesn't bother you? Eve was quiet for a moment. It bothers me that they don't understand, that they can't see I'm trying to help. But their fear doesn't change what needs to be done. The Empire is still out there. Thrag is still planning. Earth still needs protection. From you or from them? Mark asked quietly. Eve turned to face him. What? Cecil showed me the contingency plans. Omega Protocol, weapons designed to kill you if you become a threat. Satellites that track your every movement. Fail-safes built into every system you've upgraded. The entire planet is preparing to fight you, Eve. Not the Empire, you. They're smart to prepare, Eve said. I am a threat, the most dangerous being on this planet. Having contingencies makes sense. And that doesn't bother you? Should it? I know what I am, Mark. What I've become. A 500-year-old consciousness in a teenage body. A being who can unmake reality. A monster wearing the face of someone who used to be human. She looked at her hands. But I'm their monster. That's what matters. Mark took her hands. You're not a monster. Disabled entire nations' defense systems. Threatened to burn the universe for one person. That's monstrous behavior, Mark. The fact that it's directed at protection doesn't change what it is. Then why do it? Mark asked. Why keep being this? If you know it's monstrous, if you understand what you've become, why not stop? try to be human again. I can't. The pathways in my brain that allowed humanity are gone, burned away across 500 years of trauma. I can remember being human, can remember what it felt like to care about people broadly instead of obsessively, but I can't recreate it, can't go back. She squeezed his hands. This is who I am now, forever. An immortal guardian who will watch over Earth for centuries, who will die and resurrect and continue protecting, who will never age, never change, never stop being exactly this. That sounds lonely, Mark said. It is. Eve released his hands. But loneliness is manageable. Losing you isn't, so I'll take the loneliness. I'm going to college next year, Mark said finally. Going to try to have a normal life. Date. Make friends. Be a regular person who happens to have powers. I know, and you're going to watch over me the entire time, aren't you? Yes. Even when I'm old? When I have a family? When I'm living a completely normal human life? Eve nodded. I'll be there, not interfering, not controlling, just watching, making sure nothing hurts you, making sure you get to live the life you deserve. And when I die, Mark asked quietly, when I'm 90 or 100 and my human half finally gives out, what then? Eve was silent for a long moment. Then I'll mourn, for however long it takes. And then I'll keep protecting Earth, because that's what you'd want, for people to be safe, for the world to continue, for humanity to thrive. You've thought about this. I've thought about everything, every outcome, every possibility, every way this could end. She turned to face him, and in every scenario you live a full life, happy, healthy, surrounded by people who love you. That's non-negotiable. Mark pulled her into a hug. Eve stiffened, surprised, then relaxed, let herself be held. Thank you, Mark whispered, for saving me, for protecting Earth, for becoming this so I didn't have to. Always, Eve said. They stood there as darkness fell, guardian and protected, monster and innocent, two people bound by a love so fierce it had rewritten causality. Eventually, Mark pulled back. I should go home, see my mom. She's been asking when I'm coming back. I'll fly you, Eve said. I can fly myself now. You trained me, but I like flying with you. Reminds me why I'm doing this. They rose into the air together, crossed the mountains, headed toward the city where Mark's mother waited. As they flew, Mark glanced at Eve. What about you? What do you want, beyond protecting me? Eve considered. I want Earth to survive, want humanity to reach the stars, want a future where the Viltrumite Empire is a distant memory and people are safe, free, able to live without fear. That's a goal, not a want. What do you want, for yourself? Eve was quiet. Then, I want to stop hurting. Want the memories of 500 years to fade. Want to look at the world and feel something other than tactical calculation and protective fury. But I can't have that, so I'll settle for you being happy. They landed outside Mark's house. Lights on inside. His mother probably making dinner. Normal, safe, human. You could come in, Mark said. My mom would love to see you. No, Eve said. This is your time with her. Your normal life. I'll watch from the orbital platform, make sure you're safe. But I won't intrude. Mark nodded, started toward the door, stopped, looked back. Eve, in the original timeline, the one you lived through, did I ever tell you I loved you? Eve's expression softened. Yes, on your deathbed, the 17th time you died. You were delirious with pain, didn't know who I was anymore, but you smiled at me and said you loved me. Then you were gone. And this time you'll live long enough to say it to someone who deserves it, someone human, someone who can love you back the way you deserve. You deserve it too. No, Eve said, I really don't, but thank you for thinking so. She rose into the air, disappeared into the night sky. Mark watched her go, then entered his house, hugged his mother, pretended everything was normal, knowing it never would be again. 1 year later, Mark graduated high school, attended college. Started dating Amber Bennett, became a hero in his own right, Invincible, Earth's newest defender. Eve watched it all from orbit, from her platform, from the shadows. She didn't interfere, didn't control, just protected, removed threats before they could reach him. Made sure his life unfolded naturally. The Guardians continued their work, now equipped with technology decades ahead of standard. The Immortal led them. War Woman fought beside them. They protected Earth alongside Eve, respected her boundaries, understood the arrangement. Cecil ran the GDA, maintaining the fiction that humanity had some control over their own defense. He kept Omega Protocol active, kept preparing for the day Eve might turn on them. That day never came. The Viltrumite Empire maintained its distance, watched Earth, gathered intelligence. Thrag waited, patient, strategic, planning for an opening that never appeared, because Eve was always there, always watching, always ready. Mark married Amber, had a daughter, named her Terra, continued being a hero while balancing family life. Eve attended the wedding, stood in the back, smiled when Mark said his vows, cried when he kissed his bride, then disappeared before anyone could ask her to the reception. She watched from orbit as Mark built his life, raised his daughter, became the man he was meant to be, and she protected him. Every day, every moment, every threat that arose, she eliminated before it could reach him. 50 years later, Mark's hair was gray now, his daughter grown with children of her own. He still flew, still fought when needed, but slower, more carefully, his human half aging, while his Viltramite half kept him stronger than any 70-year-old had a right to be. Eve looked exactly the same, 17 forever, immortal, unchanging. They met occasionally, on rooftops, in quiet moments, talked about life, about changes, about the world that had grown so different from when they'd started. "You were right," Mark said during one visit. "About Thrag. He never came, gave up on Earth entirely." "He didn't give up," Eve corrected. "He just accepted the cost was too high. The Empire moved on to easier targets. Left Earth alone, because of you." "Yes." Mark looked at her, still young, still powerful, still alone. "Do you regret it? Any of it?" "Protecting you?" Eve asked. "Never. Becoming this? Sometimes. But the cost was worth it. Look at what you've built, Mark. Your family, your life, your legacy. That's what I wanted, what I sacrificed everything to make possible." "I'm going to die eventually," Mark said quietly. "Maybe 20 more years, maybe 30. My human half is catching up. And when I'm gone, I'll keep protecting Earth," Eve said. "For you, for Terra, for every generation that comes after. That's my purpose now. My existence, eternal guardian, forever watching, forever protecting." "That's not a life, Eve." "No," she agreed. "But it's enough. Remembered. A hero who dedicated his life to protecting people." Eve attended the funeral, invisible, using her powers to bend light around herself. She watched them bury him, watched the world honor him. Then she flew to her orbital platform, sat in the command chair, and cried. For 3 days, she cried. The first real emotion she'd felt in a century. Grief so profound it threatened to unmake her. But she didn't unmake. Didn't stop. Because Mark had wanted Earth protected, had wanted humanity safe, had wanted the world to continue. And Eve would honor that, forever. Humanity had spread to the stars, built colonies on a dozen worlds, joined the coalition of planets as equals, become a power in the galaxy. The Viltramite Empire had fallen centuries ago, destroyed not by Eve, but by internal collapse, civil war. The same weakness that killed every empire eventually. Thrag was dust, conquest was forgotten. Anissa was a footnote in history. But Adam Eve remained, still 17, still powerful, still watching over humanity's scattered worlds. She'd saved Earth from extinction 47 times, prevented wars, stopped plagues, eliminated threats before they could manifest. She'd also watched everyone she'd known turn to dust. Mark's children, their children. Every generation passing while she remained. Immortal, unchanging, alone, but effective. Earth, now Earth Prime, capital of human space, was safe, protected, thriving, and Eve watched over it all. The eternal guardian, the pink god, the monster who'd sacrificed her humanity so everyone else could keep theirs. She sat on her orbital platform, upgraded countless times, but still the same fundamental structure, and looked down at the planet that had become her eternal charge. I did it, Mark, she said to the empty station. Kept them safe, kept your legacy alive, kept the promise. No one answered, no one had in centuries. But Eve smiled anyway, because below, on Earth Prime, humanity thrived, built, grew, lived free from fear of conquest or destruction. And that was enough. It had to be. Eve stood, checked her sensors, monitored the galaxy, prepared for the next threat, because threats always came, always would come, and Eve would always be there to stop them, forever. The immortal protector, Earth's eternal guardian, the monster they needed, the god they feared, the girl who'd loved one boy so much she'd burned away her own humanity to keep him safe, and in doing so, saved a world. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.